So one day I ordered this $170 water gun that I saw on David Dobrik's TikTok. It was pretty cool looking and I was pretty excited to test it out. I put it in my hot tub and filled it on up all the way to 100, and then I shot it and I was shocked. I shot the gutter and it was amazing. Then I kind of went crazy shooting the window, almost the camera, then the pipe again, just shooting at the air and then at the ground and then in the hot tub. And then I did a cool 360 off the hot tub and the gun was kind of making me feel like a kid. I shot this target and then got in the tree and shot at my brother. Then I let him shoot me point blank and just look at this slow-mo. And then I shot him. And then he chased me. But then I decided to go on a mission to shoot my friend Austin. I drove over to him, had the gun ready, and snuck up on him, and shot.
Ow, bro, what are you doing? Bro!
And he tried to shoot me while I ran off in the sunset. So one day someone commented to put Flex Seal and then rubber bands on the egg. So I'm going to do that and also launch it in my giant slingshot. But first I Flex Sealed it and then came back and gave it another coat. And after that, I left and came back the next day and gave it another coat. When it was dry, it looked like this. Then I gave it one last coat and it was ready. And it was still kind of wet, but I placed a bunch of bands on it and it looked like this. Then I placed a bunch more bands on it and it looked like that. Then I got on another pile, placed it on, it looked like that. Then I got out these big ones and it looked like that. Then I put it in the slingshot, pulled back, and launched. And it hit the ground pretty hard. I ran to check if the egg was okay, and it was leaking. It wasn't. So one day someone commented for me to crush the aluminum foil ball with my giant rubber band ball, and I'm going to do that, but first I wanted to add some more aluminum foil. I wrapped it one way and then the other with a lot of foil, and then I patted it down, and then I hammered it down. And it's almost 15 pounds. Here it is next to the rubber band ball, and here's me throwing it as high as I can. And now for crushing it. And then I flipped it on the other side and crushed it again. It didn't do that much damage. It was pretty tough. Comment what I should do next. So I'm now all the way to part 34 of this giant rubber band ball. And it's getting kind of redundant, but I'm going to try to keep it interesting. I ordered these bands, placed them on, you know. Then I got the other pile, which is these colored rubber bands that I actually have to untie first and then place them on the ball. And after placing this entire pile, it now weighs almost 95 pounds. I struggled to make it out to the cul-de-sac. And it's so heavy it even picked up grass. Then I picked it up and threw it. And look at it in freeze frame. Look how big it is. It's so big, there's really not much you can even do with it. Here's it next to a basketball. Here's it crushing one and then falling off. And then me trying to stand on it, but failing and crushing the basketball goal. So, like if I should keep on going or comment what I should do. So one day someone commented and told me to make a boat out of plastic containers. So I made one out of these plastic bottles. I taped this seat on like this and it was ready to float down the creek. I got on and I took off and it was kind of hard to balance and then I fell. But I got back up and continued on down the creek. The boat was kind of unstable, but I continued on as far as I could go. And when I made it to the big current, I was unbalanced and fell off. And then I lost track of the boat. It was floating down the creek, so I chased after it and hopped on. And then fell again. And also chased the oar down and finally headed back. Comment what else I should make a boat out of. So one day I got a bunch of bubble wrap and ramen noodles to make 2 separate boats for my Will It Boat series. I started with the bubble wrap and taped these 3 things together with a little bit of cardboard and went off on the creek. It was hard to balance on, but it floated at first. And I floated for a while until eventually water started to seep in and I had to get off and drag it to shore. Then I threw a rock and the next day got started on this ramen noodle boat. And the plan was to keep all the ramen in the boxes because I didn't want any of the noodles to get in the water. But I finished the boat and took it out to the creek and it floated pretty decently, but when I got on it, it started to sink. And it stayed afloat, but not with me. Maybe a squirrel. So this is rubber band ball part 55 and I dumped out another 25 pounds of rubber bands and started placing. And I actually have a new scale on the way. It can read all the way up to 1,000 pounds and I think the ball will be 400 pounds after I'm done with this pile, but we'll have to test it when the scale gets here. I launched some of these bands and then I compared the ball next to me and it's completely massive and there's no chance I can pick it up anymore. But it's way easier to stand on than ever before and I can even like flip off it. This ball is just completely crazy. So like if you want me to take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day someone commented for me to freeze an egg in a block of ice and then shoot it out of my giant slingshot. So I put it in a cup of water. I added tape over the top, then put it in a freezer, and the next day it was rock solid. I then ran it under some hot water and got it out of the cup. And it was ready to launch. The only problem was the egg was stuck in the corner, but I'll just aim for the other side. I put it in the slingshot, pulled back, and launched. And this shot was kind of bad, but it landed, and I ran to it, and pretty much nothing happened. So I put it back in the slingshot for round 2, and it hit this tree. Well, bam. I went out to it and the egg looked fine at first, but that was only because it was frozen. The egg was actually cracked. So then I just threw it against a tree and then found a bat and obliterated it. Sort of. The egg was still intact. So then I just ate it. So it's another week and I'm on to rubber band ball part 58 and I weighed it in at 446 pounds and then I had to keep on adding more. I dumped out a whole nother box of bands and got to work. And I kept on placing for about an eternity and ran through multiple pairs of gloves, but eventually we made it. This thing is now so big, the camera just doesn't justify how big it is. I was going to do a backflip, but ended up just doing that. And then I rolled it over the trampoline, fell off of it. And here's just a quick size comparison next to a ball pit ball. Then I put it on the scale, zeroed it out, and it weighed in at 472 pounds. So like this video if you want me me to continue building it. So it's now part 35 of my giant rubber band ball, and I decided to change up the scenery a little bit. I dumped out a whole box of rubber bands of different kinds. I started by dumping these colored garbage bag rubber bands into a pile and putting these gloves on so I don't hurt my fingers, and putting all the rubber bands on, and this happened. Right into my eye socket. And it hurt, but I kept on going because the rubber band ball wasn't going to make itself. I finished off all these colored ones and then dumped out these purple ones that I ended up not using because they were kind of trash. I got out these ones instead and placed the entire pile. And I was done and exhausted. The ball is almost 100 pounds now, and it's a pretty big struggle to get downstairs. Took it out to the street and barely picked it up. Yeah, it's getting pretty hard to throw now, so I just sit on it and stand on it. Like if you want me to keep on going to 100. So one day someone commented on my water gun TikTok saying if you fire the gun once, then hold it down and release, it releases a more powerful charged shot. So I'm about to find out. So first, here's a normal shot, still pretty powerful, and then me loading up a powerful one. I lined up the shot, and whoa, they were not lying. You just shoot twice, and bam, and then I decided to let my brother shoot me with it. He aimed in, shot the first 2 shots, and yeah, it kind of hurt, so don't try this at home, and let me know what else I should try, or do. So one day someone commented for me to put rubber bands on an egg, and I thought it'd be interesting to test out to see if the bands would protect it from a drop. I started placing the bands on the egg, and then switched to a different pile because their bands were better. I kept placing them, double twisting each band because they weren't big enough. It got to this, and then I finished off the pile, and it looked like this. Pretty bouncy. And it was ready for a drop test. I took it out to the cul-de-sac, and dropped it from waist high. And yeah, it completely cracked. I didn't really expect that, to be honest. I picked it up, let it go, and then walked off sad. Like if I should do something else. So one day someone commented to put rubber bands on a bottle of Coke with Mentos in it, so I got Coke, Mentos, and rubber bands. I then put 3 Mentos on a piece of tape and put it in the Diet Coke. I then set it down and started adding rubber bands until eventually one of the Mentos fell in the Diet Coke bottle. So I quickly picked it up, took it out to the street, and dropped it, and then picked it up, threw it once, and this was kind of fail, but the second throw was this. It was probably my best Diet Coke Mentos rocket. Maybe the rubber bands made it push up. I don't know. Then I picked it up, took a drink, and then got out another bottle of Diet Coke. It looked like a fail at first, but I dropped another Mento in, quickly tightened it, and threw it, and it did this. Yeah, it just launched over. Then I got this one that I dropped in, quickly tightened, and threw. And the second bounce did this. Comment anything else you want me to try. So one day I decided to see if I could make foam board into a boat that would float me down the creek. This is going to be my first part to a series where I test if random objects or materials will make a boat. I had the boat made, and then I took it down to the creek, put it in the water, and got in. And at first, I didn't think it was going very well. Then I put a hole in it and had to move it to deeper water. So then I tested it again and completely ruined the boat. Look at it. So then I ran off sad, but comment any other boat ideas you want me to make. So after failing to destroy this snowman with my water gun and giant rubber band ball, someone commented to fill the super powerful water gun up with boiling water and then shoot it. But first I had to make another head because the other one was broken. I made it, put it on, and he was ready. I let some water boil, put the gun in, and it reacted like this. So don't try this at home because it almost burnt me. So I just filled it up with hot tub water and then went out and shot it a bunch of times. Until eventually the snowman looked like this. But that wasn't enough, so I got a bow and arrow out and shot it with a few arrows and then beat its head in. But the body is still rock solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day it was snowing outside and I decided I wanted to build a giant snowman and destroy it with my giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I started with a snowball and it got bigger and bigger till eventually we had our base. We cleaned it up a little bit and then I rolled around another snowball until I had the midsection. Put it on, smoothed it out, and then put on the head. We smoothed out the rest and gave it arms and a chain and turned him into Drippy Steve the Snowman. Hey, icy. Then I filled up my super powerful water gun with hot tub water and blew a hole in his face. And then supercharged his nose off. And after that, I got out the giant rubber band ball, picked it up, and threw it at his head. And he was pretty wrecked. Here's me pretending I'm a snowman, and then the rubber band ball going past and being on him and throwing it at his back. But none of it worked, so I threw this thing at him and then jumped into him. But he was too solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day, someone commented for me to drive over my giant aluminum foil ball with a car. So I'm going to do it. I backed the car on up, pulled forward, and it didn't go over at first. So I backed up and did it again a little faster. Yeah, I did it pretty good, and it looks like a hay bale now. Then I twisted it the other way and ran over it with a back tire. And then backed up onto it. And the aluminum foil ball was fully supporting the weight of this car pretty well. Then the tire spun it off. And here it is now. Let me know what else I should try. So one day I went out to the Walmart as seen on TV aisle to see if it all really worked as it does on TV. I browsed around and ended up getting these glasses, this dog brush thing, and some flex tape. And I'm even going to break a skateboard in half to test the flex tape, but I got it all and started with this glove thing. It is apparently supposed to remove this much hair from a dog. And my dog doesn't shed that much, but I'm going to test it out on him. I brushed him for a minute with it, and at the end it looked like this, so not really. Then I got out these up-close glass things. I don't know, it's supposed to make things bigger. And I tested it on this print, and it made it bigger. And then I got outside and tested it in the real world, and I felt like Logan Paul back with the color glasses, and it made this tree way bigger. It was amazing. I'd never seen the real world this close. And then I got out the flex tape and broke this skateboard in half. I then tried to line it up back together and put the flex tape around it and wrapped it all the way around until the roll was empty. I pressed down on it, then tested it out, and it didn't really work. It was more like one of those train things. So I threw it and it landed right side up and still rolls. So I'm now all the way to part 36 of this giant rubber band ball. And let me know if you want to stop, but for now I'm going to keep going. So I got this new pack and, placed that entire pile on the ball, which was pretty exhausting. So I took a break, then came back later with all these colored rubber bands that I dumped into a pile and placed on the rubber band ball. And I was done. And it might have broke the scale because it reads 102 and 103. So I don't know. Then I took it downstairs struggling. I rolled it off into the yard and into the road. And just look at this ball in comparison to my head. It's massive, and it's getting pretty hard to lift and throw. And Mike, if you want me to keep going or just cut it in half. So one day I bought like 1 million Orbeez to dump in this inflatable pool and get in. Because I've always seen people do this kind of stuff and always wanted to try it. So here it goes. I dumped all the Orbeez out into this pool, mixed it up, and here's an hour time lapse of it growing. And this is what they looked like at the end of the hour. Yeah, they still needed to get bigger, so I came back the next day and it was completely full. Look at it. I got in the pool and the Orbeez got huge. Look at this one. Then I decided to lay down in it, move around. I moved my legs around like this, made a bunch of waves, splashed my face with Orbeez, and jumped in them. Then I dropped this rubber band ball in them and it made a pretty big splash. Here's the slow-mo and here's another drop. Like if I should fill this pool up to the top. So it's now rubber band ball part 56, and I bought a 1,000-pound scale to weigh it, and it weighs in at 396 pounds, but we gotta get it to 1,000. So my friend and I began placing a giant pile of bands for what felt like an eternity, and it got dark, and we kept on placing until we were completely out. And now we gotta weigh it, but first I wanted to test standing on it, so I ran on it like a barrel, then I did that, then stood on it, and then fell again. And here it is next to my head. Then I put it back on the scale and it weighed in at 422, then 428. So I don't know, but like if I should keep on adding bands. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it. And also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell. Then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home. But first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. And when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So one day someone commented telling me to microwave my aluminum foil ball, but first I'm going to do some other comments, including making it smoother and making this basket. This was actually my idea. And oh look, I made it, haha. And then I sanded it down to make it smoother, which didn't really work, but it gave me this little ball. And then it was time to put it in the microwave. Don't try this at home. I took the plate out, put it in, turned it on for 60 seconds, and waited. So one day I decided to turn this warehouse into a cool video spot. But first I had to clean the place up, so I started by power washing the entire warehouse. And I actually power washed a few more times off camera, but this is the one I filmed the entire thing of. I washed the entire floor and then put some of this acid down, scraped some of this stuff up, and it looked like this. Then it was time to paint. Bam. It looked really good painted and was almost done, but I got this beanbag, this hoop, this trampoline that I did a flip on, and then I shot the hoop, did a dunk thing, and there's also this loft thing. But comment any video ideas you have for me. So one day someone commented for me to tie 4 bottles of Diet Coke and Mentos together and then throw it. So I got Diet Coke, Mentos, and tape, and I was going to tie these 4 bottles together. I got the tape out, wrapped it all the way around, then put the Mentos in one by one, and all the bottles, 3 each, then took it out of the cul-de-sac and threw it. And it did nothing. So I threw it again, and it did that. It was kind of a fail, but I just threw 2 bottles separate, and it did that, which was kind of cool. And then I wrapped 2 bottles together, thinking maybe that would work better, and it did a little bit, but not really. So then I threw another one, and yeah. So I can't believe this ball's still going, but I'm at rubber band ball part 57, and I weigh it in at 422 pounds, but I'm going to keep on adding bands and make it even bigger. And a lot of people wonder why I wear gloves, and it's because if I don't, the bands will rub against my hand and create blisters. And I kept on placing bands until we were completely out, and look at it, it's huge. I can stand on it with ease now, but not pick it up. And it's tall enough to use as a platform to fall off of and flip. Then I tried to do like this rolling trick shot and just fell on my butt. But I did make this dunk off of it and this basket. And it was finally time to weigh it in at 447 pounds. It is massive, like if I should keep going. So one day someone commented on this video where I tried to replicate this video and said I had the timing all wrong. And they were right. This was my first attempt at it and it didn't do anything but make a bunch of waves. So I went to Walmart and got a rounder floaty and then tried again. And this time I tried to make the timing. That first try was better. Then the second try I did this and really tried to time it up. And it was my best run yet. And I actually got the wave to knock me down. And I also used a bunch of slow-mo in this video because I accidentally shot it in slow-mo. You can even see on this next run then a wave hitting the ring of the pool and then me falling. And then on this next one I did it really good. and went like that. And you know I had to use that slow-mo. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So one day I decided to build like a Nerf sniper tower up in this loft, make a cool little cardboard fort, because why not? And after I was done with that, I decided to build one on the ground level that actually looked even better. And I spent a lot of time on it, you know, made this cardboard fort, added a tower until it looked like that, and it was across from this one. Then it was time for war. We loaded our guns, and then we were ready to face off. I had the tower with the Fortnite sniper, and I kept shooting and shooting. But I didn't end up having the best luck. And even fell. But check out that cool merch. So one day I went to Walmart and got a bunch of cardboard to make one of those cardboard tunnel slides on my stairs like I've seen before. And tape. And then left. Went home and started building it. I taped the first box down at the top and was adding glow sticks all along on the way down. I then taped the second box to the top one and repeated this process for a long time until eventually I was done. The slide was looking pretty cool. I threw some pillows down to break my fall and went down it. And the first one was kind of anticlimactic, but my brother went down pretty fast and almost hurt himself. And on his next go, he basically destroyed the slide. So I had to remove this piece and put down a new flooring that made it actually faster. Here's a POV of me sliding down. And here's my final go. So one day I wanted to freeze a balloon out in the cold and put food coloring in it like I've seen before on TikTok because it looks really cool. So I put the balloon out there and let it sit. And then I tried to ripstick, but it wasn't really working. So I threw it and then tried to make a snowball, but it was just powder. And I came back the next day and checked on my balloon and tried to do that cool knife cut thing. And it just cut like this. And then all the water started draining out. So I stabbed it quickly and the food coloring didn't really go in it. But I broke it. And then it disappeared in the snow. And then I tried to make a snow angel. So one day I saw a TikTok where they tested flex tape and I wanted to test it out for myself. So I got a jug of water, filled it up. I cut a square of flex tape out and then stabbed this thing, which took quite a while, but eventually I got a hole in it. And then I slapped the flex tape on. And it worked pretty well. There was a small leak, but a little bit of rubbing and you got it out. And next I decided to test a 50-pound weight. I put the flex tape on and it couldn't get it. So I decided to move to 45 pounds and it got it up and held there for quite a while. This is some strong stuff. So one day it was snowing and I decided to take my giant hamster ball and get in it. I wanted to see what it was like in the snow and how high I could jump in it from. I got in and rolled around a little bit, you know, ran. Saw a cool tree, did a few more flips, and then pushed it onto the deck. And from there, I got in and ramped it off. And after that, I ran a little bit more and then got out to see if I could jump in it from different heights. And I missed that one, got that one. And then I positioned the ball even higher and missed, fell backwards, and missed again. So I ran back even further and I still came kind of short. But on this last run, I got it. Let me know what else I should try. So one day, after freezing a giant water balloon and it being hollow, people wanted me to do it bigger and better. And it was going to get colder, so I'm gonna. I let it fill up for even longer this time. And I was also going to let it sit for even longer. I zip-tied it shut, and then let it sit and came back the next day to check it out. And I could stand on it. It was pretty frozen. We gave it another day. And then came back out again. And the balloon had popped somehow, but the ice was still rock solid and I could stand on it, kinda. I ripped the balloon off, then pushed it over and it did that. And I threw the ice and it was really, really strong. It's pretty thick ice. So one day I wanted to freeze a giant 6-foot water balloon in the ice cold. But the hose was frozen, so I tried pouring hot water on it. And when that didn't work, I put it in the hot tub. That got it to thaw out, so I zip-tied the water balloon on and started filling it up. Here it is from the window. We decided to stop it here because we didn't know if too much would make it not freeze. And I struggled to get it off, eventually got it tied, and then here was it at night, kind of frozen. And then the next morning it was solid. I could put my foot on it and even stand on it. So we decided to cut it open. And it was a lot thinner than I thought, so I just smashed it a bunch. Like if I should fill up a bigger one and let it sit for longer. So I'm now at a rubber band ball part 41 and my 25 pounds of rubber bands got here. So I took it upstairs along with my giant rubber band ball. I took it all to the room where I placed the bands and then I threw that in a package and opened it up. And each bag weighed 5 pounds. I dumped them all out and the bands were pretty good. So I dumped out 10 pounds of bands and got to placing. And it was a lot, so I had my brother help me with this one. And we were going for so long, my phone even cut out because it ran out of storage. But we finished eventually and then took it downstairs. I got it all the way down and then weighed it in at 123 pounds. I took it outside and just look at it next to a wheel and next to my head. And here's my best effort at trying to pick it up. I can barely do it anymore. Let me know what else I should do with this ball. So one day I decided to prank my brother Jack by filling his entire truck up with ball pit balls. And my brother likes his truck a lot, so I don't know how he'll react. And luckily I had already had these ball pit balls from previous videos, you know. And I just began dumping them in the truck and then shut the windows down to make sure they didn't spill out while I put them in. And eventually the truck was filled up, so I went to get him and get his reaction.
I did something to your truck. Oh, yeah? Go take a look in the window.
Why are your windows?
And at first he just paused in silence looking at the truck. And then he opened the door.
What do you think?
You know how long it's gonna take to clean up? How am I gonna find my school supply? the sea crevice.
Then he jumped in it, and then I jumped in it and threw a bunch of balls around.
Later, bruh.
And he took off. So one day someone said I should try to go to the pawn shop again, so I'm going to take my rubber band ball, this chain, and some other stuff. I put the ball in my car and then got my bling on and then went inside the pawn shop and said,
What's going on?
I'm back. Got a few more things.
Hey, what you got today?
Bling on this
Wow,
time.
that's blingy.
First off, I got this tiny rubber band ball.
Is this an offspring of that one?
Sure, yeah.
Now in babies? What's up with that?
Want to buy it?
I then told him I wanted $50 for it, and he said,
$50 for $5 worth of rubber bands? Better pass on that one.
so I then threw it and got out my genuine gold watch.
Gold watch.
And he didn't seem to think it was gold.
You got screwed.
Walmart, what a ripoff.
They do that to a lot of people.
Probably explains why it was like $10.
And after that, I got out my chain and said it was probably
This much
worth.
Gold's probably worth about $30K.
He looked at me like I was crazy and then waited.
90 grams.
Is that a lot?
No.
Oh.
And he ended up passing on the chain, so I got out the rubber band ball. It was 80 pounds last time I brought it in, and now over 100.
You're a lot stronger than you look.
It would take a lot for me to let this thing go. What's your best offer?
You got $150 for it.
And I knew I couldn't do it. So I threw the ball down and headed out, knowing I'll probably never sell it. So one day someone commented for me to drop my rubber band ball in a microwave, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to crush this piece of furniture along with a few other things with this giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I got in the ladder and threw it, and it did that. I then picked it up and plugged it in to test if it would still turn on, and it did, but the doors broke. Next, I got this jug of water I just filled up with the hose, and it did that. Then this bouncy ball that was way louder in person. And last but not least was this piece of furniture I found in my attic, and it did that. Let me know what else I should crush with my rubber band ball. So I'm now to part 40 of my giant rubber band ball, and I wanted to walk you guys through the entire process. I take it upstairs and into this room where I sit down and place rubber bands. I'm actually running out of the type of rubber bands I can place because these ones are just too tiny and break on me. And these ones are just getting old and I have to untangle them every single time. But no worries, I found this random custom rubber band site on the internet and called them up. Yo, I need your 15-inch rubber bands. I'll place an order for like 25 pounds. And just like that, $200 worth of rubber bands was on the way. But for now, I'm going to place these ones. I put them in a pile and then untied them all and got to placing them. And I placed the entire pile of colored rubber bands until I was all out. And after that, I took it downstairs, which was a struggle, but I got it. And I weighed the ball in at 113 pounds. I then took it to the street to try to pick it up. And I can get it up to here, but it's too heavy to get over my head. So I just laid on it, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. Part 2 of my saran wrap treehouse. So I was almost done, and I just kept on going for quite a while, nonstop. And I was leaving the middle undone so I could get on it, but I just had this tiny section to do, and I finished. And then I was ready to go inside the epic treehouse and test it out. I got on, and at first I thought the plastic was going to break, but when I spread myself out, I was chilling. And it was a pretty cool treehouse. Here it is from above, and it's a pretty sturdy thing. And when it's raining, you can just go under it like this. It even holds water. Look. And then it started to thunder. The full video is on my YouTube, by the way. Dylan Ayres. So one day I decided to turn my giant 110-pound rubber band ball into a wrecking ball using my backyard zip line. But first I pushed it onto the storm shelter and ran it off, and then started tying it up. I put it on a ladder and got it hooked to the zip line, and then I tested it out, and it was pretty cool looking. And now it was time to wreck some stuff, starting with this broken piece of furniture. And then I turned it to its side, and it absolutely destroyed it. The drawer was broken, and I thought it was good for one more hit. And it was obliterated. And then I decided to do this trash can. Yeah, let me know what else I should destroy. So I'm to part 39 of this giant rubber band ball, and I can't find any other type of rubber bands except these ones to place on it. So let me know if you have any other options, but for now, I'm going to keep on placing these. And I placed the entire pile of color rubber bands until I was all out. And then I took the ball outside to mess around with it, and it was snowing, so I just laid on the ball and caught the snow. And I can't even lift it over my head anymore because it weighs like 110 pounds. And then here's me breaking a basketball goal with it. And here it is next to a basketball, and then me standing on it, and let me know if I should keep on doing this. So one day, my friend and I went out to this giant snow pile in the middle of a parking lot to build a giant igloo. We got to digging for a long time. He would dig out the hole, and I would scrape it out with a big shovel like this. We repeated this process for quite some time until eventually it looked like this. We were starting to make our way in, and it was starting to look like an igloo. And our next goal was trying to make it taller so we could easily dig. And after a lot more time, we got it looking like this, but we still had more to go. It had been over an hour, and we were just throwing snow everywhere. Then we saw this truck drifting in the parking lot, and here's our progress so far. We accidentally put a hole in the roof. Here it is. But it's a pretty big igloo that you can even stand up in. But the sun was coming down, so we had to leave, like if we should keep going. So one day I got this giant hamster ball, and the next day it was raining, so I decided to get in it in this air-up dinosaur suit. But first I got it in normally just to test out the rain with more mobility. I ran through this puddle twice, and then rolled around a little bit, ran a little bit, and rolled a little bit more. And then got in the dinosaur suit and got in. And it was a struggle because I couldn't really see where I was going. So I only moved around a little bit and then got out and almost hit my head. But I got out and then ran off and jumped in the air. Let me know what else I should try. So one day I ordered my own bubble solution to make bubbles and test if that TikTok I saw where the bubbles freeze in the freezing cold really worked. I made the bubbles as big as possible and I tracked the first one outside and it went off for a little bit and then we lost it. So then I just caught this next one and let it freeze on the stick. And it did, and then fell off. It was pretty cool. And so I blew another one and caught it, and then it popped. So I blew another one, caught that one, and then time-lapsed it to freezing. Look at it. And then it fell off. Here's it in the slow-mo. And then I did that hot water thing just for fun. So one day I decided to take my giant 123-pound rubber band ball to the gym. And my friend tried overhead pressing it to start out. And he got it. So then I tried, and I just couldn't do it. And then we saw a scale and decided to weigh it, and it weighed 123. Then I tried benching it and about crushed myself. Then we convinced this other dude in there to try to overhead press it, and he also got it. Then my other friend tried and kind of got it. Then my friend who's 6'7" tried, put it on his knee first, and then also kind of got it. Then I tried again and didn't quite get it, but did a little bit better. Then my friend tried benching it and about crushed himself too, and then got one rep with some stability. And then we had the idea to put it on a treadmill. We put it on and it started rolling backwards. And we got it to just roll on there by itself, and it went all the way to the back and then came off. Then my friend golfed with it. Let me know what else I should do with this giant rubber band ball. So everyone wanted us to make the snow pile in the parking lot that we made into an igloo even bigger. So we went back the next day with our shovels to do just that, digging out the hole and scraping all the snow out. And while we were digging, we found whatever this is. And keep in mind, I do not recommend you try this at home or anywhere. I'm a trained pro, yo. Anyway, we kept on digging more and more snow out, which was taking a very, very long time. But it was kind of satisfying. And after quite some time, here was our progress. We still had a lot of snow to clear out and we needed to make it more even. We shoveled out all that snow. And then my friend made a seat, and it was pretty cool. I sat on it. The igloo was starting to come together. We shoveled out some more snow until it was completely finished. And here's the inside. I laid down, poked the ceiling, and then started punching the roof in to destroy it. And then I completely destroyed the whole fort so no one would get hurt in it. And then did a front flip. And here's the aftermath. So one day, after destroying a bunch of stuff with my homemade rubber band ball wrecking ball, I got a microwave and decided to go again. And it weighs like 123 pounds now, so it should do more damage. Here it goes. Yeah, I didn't think it was enough damage, so I set it back up and went again. And it did get nailed, but I wanted to hit it one more time. Boom. And then I put down this kickball, thinking it would go super far, but it didn't. So then I got out this broken TV that I failed to smash before. And it did that, and completely destroyed the microwave that was holding it up. I walked up to it, and then my brother pulled the door off. Let me know what else we should smash. So one day someone commented to run over my brother with this giant hamster ball, but I'm actually going to let him run me over. First I messed around in it, then got out and jumped on it. And I was trying to jump over it, but I just fell backwards and broke this bush. And then I laid down for my brother to run me over. He ran me over and it wasn't that bad, so I rolled over and let him run me over again. And again. And then I told him to do it a lot faster, and he did. And then I told him to go even faster, and this is from my point of view. It was pretty cool to watch. Boo. And then I got in a different position to see if he could make it over me like that, and eventually he did. And here's my angle. Ooh. And then I got out the giant rubber band ball and put it in the ball because someone else commented to do that. And it weighed over 100 pounds and started rolling out and then just fell out. Comment what else I should try with the giant hamster ball. So one day I decided to take 2 gold chains, 1 fake, 1 kind of real, flex tape, a giant water balloon, and a giant rubber band ball back to the pawn shop.
Got doubled up in the chains.
Yeah.
I brought the rubber band ball in again. I just wanted you to see how big it is. I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on a price.
Big. Wow.
And I started off with this.
With this giant water balloon. This is pretty special. It can hold a lot of water, and it's really big.
I asked him what he thought he could give me, and he
You ever
said,
filled it up?
Yeah.
he said he'd do 5, but I thought that was way too low. So then I got out.
Genuine flex tape from Phil Swift himself.
Work good?
Yeah.
Is that flex tape strong enough to lift that ball?
And I didn't know, so we decided to test it. We put it on the ball, he picked it up, and it didn't work. So then I got out the 2
Tell me
chains.
what you think each one of them's worth.
He looked at him and said,
This one I think you stole off your curtains.
and then he went and did an acid test on the other one and said it basically it was just gold plated, which is what I thought anyway, so I just kept it. And then I left. Full vid will be on my YouTube. So one day I decided to build one of those saran wrap tree houses that I keep seeing on TikTok. And I was going to build it in this half put together tree house, and I started by making the floor, and after the floor I was going to do the roof. It would also double as a hammock. I wrapped the saran wrap around a bunch of times, and it kind of looked like a spider web. And then I got back up there and went around a bunch more to make sure it was strong enough. I then wrapped it around all the corners and started weaving it all the way in. And this first section was pretty strong, so I kept on going, making it even stronger and then branching out. And I kept on going and making a super strong middle section until eventually it looked like this. So after destroying our microwave with my 100-pound rubber band ball, someone left a comment saying to do a phone. But first I'm going to do this broken TV my neighbor gave me. I put the ball on there and threw it. And it didn't do very much damage, so I just threw it again. and it mainly just bounces on it. So I stepped on it a bunch and then got out a giant snowball that was left over. And that was pretty cool and left me with a snowball. And then I got out the phone. I set it down, then threw the ball on it, but it missed. So I threw it again and it cracked it. Look at it. I'm just kidding, this is a fake phone. It's actually smashed now. So one day, after filling my storm shelter entirely up with ball pit balls, we cleaned it up because someone commented to turn it into a cool fort. So I went to Walmart and got a beanbag, some MRE ice cream and egg, and a thing of water to make it kind of survivally, and a bin, and a desk. And then I took it all to the storm shelter and started putting it together. Put the beanbag in, then the desk, which made me laugh for some reason, and then I hung up these lights. Pretty cool. Next, I got the MREs in a bin, set it on the desk, and then filled the water jug up. And the fort was pretty much done to me. Let me know what else you think I should add. Oh, and I also tried one of the MRE ice cream sandwiches. It was pretty good. So one day someone commented telling me to put my giant hamster ball in the water, so I'm going to do that. But I pushed it through this fence and walked it out to the pond. But the fence had knocked a hole in it, so we had to repair it, and then I got in and got in the water. And I couldn't really move very well, and my biggest fear was going through the hole. I slipped a lot and also just laid down. And then I slipped some more and couldn't move for a while until I accidentally made my way over these branches. And I was trying to run the other way in fear of moving into them, but I couldn't. And eventually I did just float into shore and then got grabbed and got out. Like if I should jump off this bridge with it. So one day I decided to fill my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, but first I had to clean it. I swept it up for a minute until it looked like this. It was a little bit better, and then I got the ball pit balls. And I dumped them all in, and it looked like this. So I went in and laid down. It was pretty cool. I threw the balls in the air, and then I started trying to make it into this little hole. I missed, and then got close, and then kept going until I got it. Then I threw it at that hole, chilled a bit, and jumped in. And here's what it looks like with the door shut, just an underground ball pit. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I got a comment saying I should drop my 110-pound rubber band ball in my saran wrap fort. But it's really heavy, so I got a tarp, tied it up with paracord, and then tried to lift it with a pulley system. And we ended up having to use a truck to get it up because it's too heavy. But we put it on the wrong branch and couldn't get it up from there, so we put it on a different one. Still couldn't get it up from there. But on the third time we got it, and I pulled it onto the fort and cut it open, and it was on there. It made it sag a lot, but I moved it over to here and then threw it off. What else should I try? So one day I decided to go dumpster diving behind a phone store to see what I could find, and it was empty. So I drove out to a different phone store, and it was locked. So I went out to Academy's dumpster, and it looked promising, but someone was already there, so we left. And ended up going out to this different sports and outdoor stores, and I looked through it and didn't find anything for a while until eventually I found a watch.
A watch?
And it didn't work, but it was still cool. And then I got in, kept looking, and went out to the side and found this speaker. And I don't know if it works. So this is rubber band ball part 38, and this ball is getting giant. And I'm going to keep going. Got a bunch more bands, you know. And I tested out these new bands that didn't end up working. So I just ended up going back to these colored rubber bands. And the camera cut out, and I lost all that footage of me putting on. So here's me putting on the last one, and then taking it downstairs. And the ball now weighs 109 pounds. I took it outside, and it ran into a bush. And then I set it on top of this swing and started swinging it. And it was pretty cool, and I tried to knock it off, but couldn't. The most it did was that, and then I just got on it and kicked it off. And it's so heavy I can barely pick it up anymore. Let me know if you want me to keep going. So one day I went out to the gas station to make some random gas station drink because I saw someone else on TikTok do it. I got Mountain Dew and then got this random candy, some Lifesavers and some Crawlies, and then a Bang. And it was all ready to be thrown together. I put the Lifesavers in, then the Crawlies, and then this stuff, and then added the Bang and started stirring. And I took a drink, and I couldn't quite tell what I thought. And it was pretty much sweet Bang, but I kept on drinking it and the flavor started to come out. And then I tried one of the pieces of candy in it, and that was really gross. But I came back a few hours later to try the drink, and it was even better. And then 24 hours later, it got all big and looked like this. So I'm now to part 37 of this giant rubber band ball. And it's getting pretty giant, but everyone still wants it to be bigger. So I ordered more rubber bands, dumped them into a pile, and started placing. And then this happened because it's getting hard to place them. But I kept on going, finishing the pile, and then I took a break and went outside to play with the ball in the snow. And there wasn't much snow, but I made as big a snowball as I could, set it on the rubber band ball, and then crushed it. And then I came back to place another pile. I dumped it out, and then I placed it a little bit differently this time. I just threw all the bands on the ball. Bam. Magic. And the ball actually broke the scale, and the scale won't read anymore, so I don't know how much it weighs. But I took it out of the coal sack, and it's just pretty heavy. So, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I took my microwave to the streets to microwave grapes like I saw on a YouTube video, and it's supposed to make plasma. Don't try this at home, but I'm going to try it. You put a glass cup over and wait, and it did nothing at first, so I tried again with some more time, and it still did nothing. And after some more time, didn't do much, I decided to cut it like I saw in another YouTube video, and then put it in. And that didn't really do much but make it smoke a little bit more, so I did it again without the glass, and it did that, and then again with more time, it did that. And it only ever left a stain. Let me know how I should get sparks. So after my last trip in my giant hamster ball, I threw it away because it was gross, and I actually ordered a new one that was bigger and better. It was really expensive, but it's massive. I blew it up, all the way. And then I got in to test it out. And this one, you can just get in without airing it up while you're in. It was pretty big inside, and then I just ran and did a bunch of flips and stuff. And my last one, you'd get hurt if you fell, but this one has 2 layers, so it's cushioned. I ran out to the street and then just laid around for a second. And here's the inside perspective. Me doing a flip. I tumbled one more time and then let my brother go for a spin. He went out pretty far and then got out. Comment any ideas for videos with this giant thing. So one day I was back at it working on my almost 1,200 pound rubber band ball. We had 25 pounds of rubber bands in front of us that we looped one by one into basically 2 giant rubber bands that we could then wrap around the ball like this, which is honestly kind of satisfying to watch. And at the end, we can also put it on the scale to see exactly what it weighs. Here's the scale that I spent a lot of money on, and it's supposed to read up to 5,000 pounds. But it doesn't read right unless you stand in this exact spot. Our first goal was just getting it to the scale, which is hard enough because it weighs over 1,200 pounds and is really hard to stop. And here was the real challenge, getting it up the ramp, because the problem is the ball is not perfectly round and it rolls everywhere. It honestly looked impossible, but we eventually got it in the exact spot. And it weighs pretty close to the estimate of around 1,200 pounds. So like for more. So it's rubber band ball part 74, and the ball won't fit through a doorway. It's over 800 pounds and it's looking kind of rough, but we're on our way to 1,000 pounds and we're going to get it there. We dumped out a bunch more bands and we've been using this same band for a while. They still work on the ball, but we almost need bigger bands. We kept on placing until it was done. And it's actually getting hard to jump on because it's so tall. I pulled a stray band onto it and then crushed this box and then pulled it to the scale. And at first the scale was acting broken, but eventually it weighed in at 842 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I went into my room full of packing peanuts and I had an idea. Fill this inflatable dinosaur costume completely up with packing peanuts. I walked around, fell down, threw a bunch of packing peanuts in the air like this, and then decided to get to work. I taped up the seams and holes like this, and then just began stuffing it as much as I could. I wanted to make a completely stuffed dinosaur teddy bear, but the zipper broke, and I tried to tape it, but it didn't really work, so I just threw it on the ground and body slammed it. Yeah, let me know what else I should try. So this rubber band ball is just completely insane now. We dumped out all these bands to place on the ball and got busy looping each one. We looped the pile into 2 big strands of bands like this. It's really hard to move, but we pushed it to the center and then we're starting to place the big loops of bands like this. And these videos cost a lot to make, so it's really helpful when you like and comment on it. My phone just doesn't do this ball justice of how big it is. It's so hard to push and it's just so cool. And really hard to control because it weighs 1,150 pounds. So I'm trying to live another day like I'm in Minecraft. The first thing you do in Minecraft is chop down a tree, which wasn't really working well for me. I tried shaking it, but it didn't fall down. So the next thing was building a house, which I just tried to do with materials I found around me. So I started placing these stones like this, and then I found these random wooden planks. Yeah, totally. Made a little structure, tried to use cardboard, but it failed. So I just put this air mattress over it, and I had a little base. And next was trying to survive in the snow biome. In Minecraft, you can build a campfire. So that was my first goal, build a fire. I tried rubbing sticks together, but it wasn't working. So then I remembered flint and steel like you actually use in Minecraft. I put some sticks, this, and started trying to spark it, but it wasn't really working until somehow it definitely lit without me using lighter. Totally. I added more sticks and leaves to make the fire bigger, and remember, don't attempt this. I'm a pro. I made the fire, I was warm and ready for bed. Comment any other ideas I should try to survive Minecraft style in real life. So one day someone commented that I should fill my inflatable hamster ball up with all these packing peanuts that were in this room, so that's what I did. I then pushed it downstairs to get in and air it up. I got in, let it air up for a little bit, and then I got a snowball thrown at me. Ow. And then I kept on airing it up until it was full. And it was really cool inside and soft. I splashed around all the packing peanuts and then did a roll, and it didn't even hurt because all the packing peanuts cushioned my rolling. I then kept on rolling, and it looked like a popcorn machine. Here's the inside of it. And then me running as fast as I can and falling into the packing peanuts. Then I wanted to see if I could completely hide in the packing peanuts like this, and it worked. Here I am though. I then ran a little bit more, got tired, and got out. Let me know what else I should try. So one day it was rubber band ball part 75, and I rolled it across the warehouse and then put it on the scale, and it weighed 842 pounds. We dumped out a whole bunch more rubber bands and got to placing. The ball is really heavy and hard to move around, so we do our best to not place the bands in the same spot and try to keep it as round as possible. We finished the pile, and the camera just doesn't do the ball justice. I moved it to the distance to kind of get an idea of how big it is, and then I slammed into the ball, dunked on it, totally done. And then tried to move it with the hoverboard, but failed, so I spun around and put it on the scale. But we kind of broke it and it wouldn't read, but it's probably 870. So one day, after trying to experience Minecraft in real life with my homemade Minecraft fishing pole and boat, I failed and sunk the boat and only caught this carrot. But in Minecraft, you can multiply your carrots by farming them, so that's what I'm going to try. I took my hoe and started hitting the land, and then I made a spot for my carrot. I pushed it in, let it sit in the ground, and then I planted another one right here. Bam. Yeah, I waited a couple Minecraft days until bam, I had way more carrots. Which gave me another idea. Tame a horse. But you normally use apples, but I'm gonna try carrots. I'm gonna make a horse my best friend. I went out and found this donkey. I gave it a carrot, and then I moved on to the horse, and it loved me. I could see the hearts forming above its head, and it was my stallion. So one day someone commented that I should put really long pants on my kangaroo shoes to make it look like I was just super tall. But I couldn't find pants big enough, so I had to figure out how to create my own. I took 2 pairs of really big cheap jeans that I cut up to get around the kangaroo shoes like this, and duct taped it all on. I looked like some kind of weird cyborg, but it didn't look half bad. I tried to stand up with a fail, and then it was eventually up, and I felt pretty tall. I played basketball with the jeans on, and I finally looked like an NBA player. I then just took it outdoors where I looked like some type of farming cyborg. Then I just ran off into the jungle. So it's rubber band ball part 76, and I tried to prove it weighs 870 pounds, but the scale's been broken, probably from the rubber band ball, but we're just going to keep adding bands anyway. We dumped out a huge pile of rubber bands and got to placing. And this really is a lot more work than it looks like, band after band for so long. We flipped it to make it cover the blue side, and then we were done. It looks really good, and it's probably within 5 pounds of 900 pounds. Here I am laying next to it, and then jumping on it and trying to run on it. I pushed the ball, tried to get a run, and then fell, and then did it again. Kind of got one. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should keep going to 1,000. It's rubber band ball part 88, and the ball weighs over 1,100 pounds. And it's going to take a very long time for us to build this ball up to the world record. So comment if you really want me to keep going. We looped 2 giant piles of rubber bands, did some jump rope with one of them, and then decided to place them on the ball. And while we're doing this, sometimes we forget about the fact that we're in front of an 1,100 pound rubber band ball. It's kind of crazy. We finished the ball, and it's huge at 1,125 pounds. Comment your ideas for it. So one day, I decided to buy 2 giant pumpkins, one 500 pounds and the other 250 pounds. We took them on a trailer to the warehouse and then scooted them off into the beanbag and then onto the floor. This one was the hardest, weighing 500 pounds. But we got them all off, and here they are compared to my 800 pound rubber band ball. We weighed this one to be sure, and it was 240. But this one was too heavy to weigh. We flipped up the 300 pound pumpkin and dumped out a bunch of giant rubber bands to try to place them all around. We were going to see if we could cut it clean in half. In like 30 seconds after I got up, it started to buckle in and did this. I lifted up the top, and there was a wad of giant messy rubber bands and a vine. It looked really cool inside, and then I decided to dump out a bunch of little rubber bands to place around this one and tighten it up so I could make a cool ball, but it didn't really bounce very well. Let me know what I should do to the other pumpkin. So one day I decided to test flex tape on a fish tank. I bought a robo fish to go along with it to swim in it. Then I opened up the tank, filled it completely up with water to the top, and then put the fish in, and it started swimming. It was pretty cute, and I also gave it a little home. Now it was time to try to break the glass to see if flex tape would repair it, but the glass just wouldn't break, so I decided to use more extreme measures, this hammer, which eventually was too much and completely shattered it. Here's the slow-mo, and the fish just flew out. Poor fishy, but I still had the flex tape. I put it on, and it looked like this. The fish still didn't have much of a home.
Puppy prank on my girlfriend! What? Nothing. Cat, do you want me to buy you a puppy?
Yeah.
Okay, first you have to clean my room.
What? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Cat.
Song, can I have the puppy now?
Nope, now you have to make me food.
Okay. Song, I got you donuts.
Oh, that looks so good.
What? These are my donuts. Stop taking them.
Can I get the puppy now?
Alright, Cat, here's the puppy.
What? Song, this is a toy, not a real puppy. I'm breaking up with you.
What?
So it's rubber band ball part 73, and I about knocked over a fan with it and struggled to make it over to the scale, but weighed it in at 800 pounds. But we're going to add even more bands. And the ball still looks kind of broken, so hopefully after we place all these bands, it looks a lot neater. And the ball is finally getting close to 1,000 pounds, which is what the scale maxes out at. And we kept turning the ball to make it as round as possible. And after a long while of placing bands, we were finished. And the ball does look a lot neater. I jumped on it like this. Then it accidentally moved the couch when I was trying to make it over to the scale. Brendan tried pushing it on, but failed alone. So we both had to push it, and it weighed 829 pounds. I then pushed it off and took it outside to show the cows. Yeah, they thought it was pretty cool. Like if I should keep on going. So one day I wanted to fill this entire room completely up with packing peanuts. I poured out all these trash bags of leftover packing peanuts I had, and then got this big bag out and topped it all off until the room was completely filled, and it looked like this. It was crazy. Packing peanuts everywhere, high as the bed. I jumped in them, then got on the bed, rolled off, then rolled off this way, threw them up in the air, and fell on them. Then I laid down with the packing peanuts and dove off into them and shimmied around. And I appeared. Let me know what else I should do with these. So one day I made this random kind of abstract painting that I put on eBay and made a listing and tried to sell it for $60. And I also made this spin art painting that I also listed on eBay at $50. And I promoted them through TikTok and stuff, waited around. And after a lot of time and 5 million views later, one of the paintings went all the way up to $1,000 and the other one had 50 bids going up to $14,000. I was amazed. So I decided to message the final buyer and this is what they said. Their little sister bid on it and they can't pay. So yeah, kind of what I expected, but I was still kind of sad. So one day, someone commented on my video where I tested flex tape on a fish tank after breaking it like this, and it didn't really work. They said to try a bow and arrow in a plastic tank, so that's what I'm going to do. I got my bow out, this plastic tank, filled it all the way up, put the SpongeBob thing in there and the robo fish, and shot it. The arrow actually made a perfect hole I could try to repair. I pulled it out, and all the water was spewing out, and I kind of messed up putting the tape on, so I had to cut some more and add more quickly. The water was running out, I added a third piece, and the fish just barely survived. So one day I wanted to turn my bang chain into a real bang chain and take it to the pawn shop to see what they would give me. I put my chain in a container and filled it completely up with bang. I added a little more until it looked like this, and then I let it sit in the freezer overnight. I came back and it looked like this. The chain was super icy and tasted like bang. I thawed it out in the hot tub like this until it came off. And I had an actual bang ice block on my neck ready to take to the pawn shop along with this painting. I walked in and said,
got some really cool stuff here.
I told them I was saving the best for last and got this out.
Salt lamp, rare stone.
Does it have a light that goes in?
I asked if he could give me about
$2.50 for it.
$2.50?
No.
That didn't work out, so I moved
One
on.
of a kind art piece here.
I don't know what somebody was smoking when they made that.
I was looking at my rubber band ball.
And I tried to convince him that it was
Go for
worth.
about 20K. You'll give me 10. You could resell it.
I think he thought I was crazy, so I moved on to the best item I had.
It's an icy chain.
Does it belong to Vanilla Ice?
It's actually made out of bang.
How much you want for that?
This is some heavy ice right here. Say this is worth 10K too. Keep it in the ice chest, it won't melt.
Well, yeah. I don't think I'd give you $10 for it.
I knew it was worth way more, so I had to walk. So one day, after everyone kept commenting, telling me to take my 1,000-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like I did a year ago when it was only 100 pounds, I finally went back and showed the man a picture.
Wow, that looks like a wrecking ball.
Now weighs over 1,000 pounds. Should you look at it tomorrow?
And I convinced him to come out to my warehouse tomorrow morning to tell me what he thought it was worth. So the next day, he came out.
Dylan?
There he is. Here's the ball.
That is
Everyone's
one
been
big
wanting you
ball.
to see it for a long time. Last time I brought it in the store, like only 100 pounds. Now it's 10 times the size.
Wow.
Try to move it.
There's one big ball.
I let him move it around, and then I pushed it down to show him just how heavy it actually is.
It's like a wrecking ball.
Have you thought about maybe selling it to a wrecking ball company?
I think it's like worth more and it's like artness.
How much you want for
I
it?
thought about the price and then told him how much I had in bands
Probably a
alone.
few thousand in the rubber band.
500 wouldn't buy it?
Wouldn't be worth
We
it.
can load it up if you want to sell it.
I think I'm just gonna have to pass and beat the world record, but
Okay.
He didn't go high enough on the ball, so I just showed him some other stuff in the shop, including this ball and this aluminum foil ball.
That's a lot of foil.
And I said he could have the aluminum ball for 100, but he said that wouldn't be a good return. So one day someone commented telling me I should make the plane even bigger, so I put two boards together and made the plane even bigger. Here's the new one. But it still had a problem. The tip was raising up, so we added some weight on the tip, and it flew pretty good. Here it is flying into a tree. But I wanted to get it up on this roof to throw into wide open spaces, so I threw it up and then tried to figure out how to get up. And then I found this thing and used it as a ladder. I was up, and here was the first throw. It was kind of bad, but the next flight was actually pretty good. But I still wanted a perfect flight, so I threw it again, and this one looked like it was going to be perfect until it raised up a little bit and then did a flip. And then I threw it again, and this looked like the best flight yet. It was just sailing until it hit a tree. I also tested this store-bought plane, which flew pretty good, and then gave this one last throw into the field. And I'd say this plane was a success. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 50, which is literally insane. So I'm just going to place another pile and see how heavy I can get it. Right now it's at like 260 pounds. We placed for a long time, which was getting kind of exhausting. And be sure to comment any ideas you have for this rubber band ball now, because it's getting pretty heavy to do anything with. But we finished and we weighed it in at 287 pounds. The camera just doesn't do it justice. And then it fell on me and I exaggerated the fall, but then it actually hurt my foot. Like if you want me to keep going. So one day I decided to make a giant paper airplane out of this board stuff. And my first design was just a basic airplane that had a problem of the nose going up. Except for this one flight that did really good for some reason. But I looked up on the internet and there were some ways to fix this with this type of design that kind of helped. But I ended up making a whole nother plane with a slightly different design, taking them to this cliffside. I first tested the planes off this little hill and they did pretty decent. And then I threw them off the cliff. And the first one just kind of went and then nosedived. And the second one went up, and then also nosedived. And I took them back up and tried again, and the first one was doing really good until it flew in the tree, and the second one was doing really good until the wind picked up a lot and made it nosedive. The planes eventually fell out of the tree, and I had a few more good flights, including this one. So I think I'm just going to wait for a less windy day and try again. So one day I ordered around 300 Rubik's Cubes to try to make one of those paintings that I keep seeing on TikTok. We made a frame, I tested it out, and it would do. It was alright. But then I had to think what I would make and how I would make it. And I decided I would make Shrek using a color grid type thing. So then I started placing cubes, and I underestimated how long it would take. It ended up taking like 4 hours. And I didn't have black, so I ended up using orange. So when I got done, I rearranged some cubes and also took some stickers off and made it look even better. And the further you go, the more it looks like Shrek. So one day someone commented on my video with a pool of millions of Orbeez that I should fill this car up with Orbeez. So that's what I'm gonna do. So with the help of my friend Brennan, we transferred a bunch of the Orbeez into this car. I got in, and this is what it looked like. It was really cool. The Orbeez felt like a seat cushion. Look at them flying when I was driving. It was crazy. My legs were completely underwater on Orbeez, and they were just flying everywhere. I kept on driving all around, and then I decided to open up one of the doors to see what it looked like, and it was really cool looking. And then it slammed on me, and they flew at me. I let some out here, and then ran them over, and then drove off. So one day someone commented saying I should freeze the jumbo Orbeez, so that's what I'm gonna do. I put them in the freezer, and the next day they looked like this. They were all stuck together, and it wasn't as cool as I thought it was gonna be. I tried putting hot water on it, and it didn't really fix it. But I ordered some more jumbo Orbeez to test another comment, which was pouring lighter fluid in to see if it would soak them and light them on fire. But when I came back the next day, it didn't soak up any of the lighter fluid. I was disappointed, but I had one more idea, pouring all these little Orbeez onto this trampoline and jumping, which it looked really cool. Then I did a flip. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 48. I dumped out 5 bags of rubber bands and got to placing with some help because this was going to take a long time alone and this was a lot of bands. We kept placing and eventually had all the blue paint covered, and then eventually we got tired and took a break and then came back and finished off the entire pile until there was no bands left. Put it on the scale and it weighed in at almost 240 pounds, and it takes 2 people to pick it up. Like if I should keep on adding bands to it. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 70. It knocked over all these crates. Then I zeroed out the scale and weighed it in at 730 pounds, and it was time to add a bunch more bands. So my friend Brennan and I got busy placing this entire pile, which took so long, and we ended up taking a break and coming back the next day to finish it. But eventually it was done, and the ball is now even bigger. Look at it next to my head, me jumping on it, then me rolling it to Brendan, him rolling it back even faster, then dunking on it, and we weighed it back in at 755 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So it's now rubber band ball part 71, and this ball is insanely massive at 750 pounds, but we're going to make it even bigger. And this time, half the bands are these half-inch bands that I've never tested before, so we'll see how they go. And the bands were just really tight, so we ended up moving the ball to see if it would make it better, and it did, because none of the bands had been placed on that side that much. And it also helped make the ball more even. But eventually, after a long time, we were done. The ball is huge. Here I am trying to stand on it and walk on it and almost fall. I dropped some Orbeez on it, threw a water balloon at it, and crushed a water balloon, and then weighed it in at 777 pounds. So like this video if you want me to keep on adding bands. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 49, and I have 25 pounds of rubber bands again. I dumped out the whole pile, and when we began placing for a long time, as you can tell by the clouds going by in the background, this took forever. But eventually we got the entire pile done. And the ball is completely massive. I weighed it in at 263 pounds, and look at me sitting on it and then falling, and we can barely pick it up together. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So it's now part 47 of the giant rubber band ball. I let it hit a ramp and then got out 25 pounds of bands, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And this was a lot of bands, the most I've ever placed. So I thought, how could I do this more efficiently? And I had the idea, pay someone. So I paid 2 friends that day to finish up this pile. And they got busy placing a lot of bands while I watched occasionally, and then switched in and out even once. But then they kept going until eventually they had a much smaller pile left and just threw that pile on, and it was done. And it now weighs 213 pounds. And I also decided to spray paint it because I saw a comment that told me to. Like if I should keep going. So it's rubber band ball part 72, and the ball's a little messed up from a video that's not out yet, but it still weighs 775 pounds, so we're going to keep on adding bands. And this time I got these special blue bands. And we began fixing up the ball and making it look cooler with these blue bands. And we kept on rotating it. That way the bands would be spread more evenly, and it would be easier to place the bands. And after a very long time, we were done. I about crashed into the wall, then jumped on it and dropped my phone. And this ball is completely insane. Here's next to the little ball next to me, and then I struggled to put it on the scale, but got it and weighed it at over 800 pounds. Like if I should keep on going. So one day I filled an even bigger pool up with Orbeez. I filled the other one up with about 2 million Orbeez, and I'm gonna fill this one up with millions more. And we were gonna reuse the old Orbeez in this pool too, but they kind of smelled bad, so we just went with all new, and it looked like this. It was pretty insane looking and really colorful. There's millions and millions of colorful little orbs. I got in it and then splashed around, then jumped in and tried to swim across, then jumped off this mini trampoline, and I even put this inflatable zebra in there and tried to make it look like I was in a weird rap video, and fell in. Like if I should add even more Orbeez. So one day someone commented that I should make a second rubber band ball, and I already have 3. This one, and my giant one. This one's huge. I can sit on it, but not sit on the other ones because they weigh 0.6 pounds and 15 pounds. Well, the giant one is 777 pounds, but I'm still waiting on a shipment of bands, so I'm going to add on to the other one. I just grabbed a bunch of random bands at Walmart, then went back to the warehouse, threw the ball on the table, dumped out a bunch of bands, and got to placing. I started with all the colored bands to make it look really cool, and it did. It ended up looking like this. It was cool. Then I moved on to these ones to make it really tight and compact. And after a while, I was done. Here it is. Rolled it off the table and compared it next to the giant ball, then my head, and then threw it as high as I could. And it's pretty bouncy and weighs 17 pounds. Like if I should keep doing this ball too. So one day I bought a ton of cardboard sheets at Walmart to build the biggest cardboard boat I could make while still functioning. And I used to make cardboard boats all the time, but I hadn't made one in a while, and I felt like making a huge one. I pieced the boat together, taped it up completely, taped all the flaps down, flipped it over, taped this, and then put a bunch of sheets in the bottom. And after that was taped completely, we flipped it back over and then added another sheet, taped that down fully, and then I decided to add some Flex Seal. I did this to help waterproof the boat, and then I sprayed this on there, but I ended up coming back the next day and adding another coat anyway because it felt flimsy still. After that was done drying, it was time to test it out at the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and laid down. That was the only way I could be stable. The current wasn't very strong, so I tried to row without much luck, and then I saw a leak, and the boat started to collapse in. I kept on pushing, trying to stay afloat, but with no luck, we eventually went down. And I was never seen again. Not really, but I was pretty sad. So I'm now to part 69 of my giant rubber band ball, and it's now over 700 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger. I dumped out 25 pounds of bands to place on the ball, and I started placing with the help of my friend Brendan. And we actually placed 3 bands at once the whole time to make it go by a lot quicker. Until eventually we were done. I stood on it, and then tried to walk on it, and tried to walk again. It was actually kind of successful. Then I pushed it over here, dropped this ball on it, jumped on it, and then we tried to figure out how to get on the scale, and weighed it in at 727 pounds. So, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I ordered jumbo Orbeez to see if they were that much bigger than regular Orbeez. I filled it up in this container full of water, and I didn't know how much water to add, so I just added this much, and 24 hours later, it all looked like this. They were really big. Here's a size comparison to regular Orbeez. They looked like little bouncy balls, so then I tried to bounce them, and then this one broke. So then I took this one and bounced it and broke it like this. But they look so cool, I decided to taste one. Don't try them. Then we found this clear one that turned me upside down, and this one was even more round. So let me know what else I should do with these. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 80, and I'm going to add all these rubber bands to my 970 pound ball. And after this video, the ball should be within inches of 1,000 pounds. And we don't know for sure the weight because my current scale is broken, but I have a new one that weighs up to 5,000 pounds on the way. Eventually, we finished the pile, and it looked like this. It's insane. I crushed a can, then drank the rest of it, and then here's it next to my head, and here's the broken scale, like if we should keep on going. So one day someone commented that they didn't think the giant balloon I bought was 30 feet. And yeah, I might not have had it aired up all the way, so we're going to try in this video. I got a completely new balloon, aired it up inside, but I thought it was too big to try and get to full height inside, so I tried to take it outside with a rope and the air pump attached to it. But the problem was it was way too windy, and the balloon felt like it was being vacuumed from the sky all the way up until eventually it popped. And bam, there went one really expensive balloon. So one day I bought a 30-foot balloon to try to pop it. I covered my head, and then I got white stuff in my nose, and then tried to air it up. It was really cool, and it made like these waves. It aired up for a little while until it was completely full. I untied it and then wrapped some rubber bands around it, and look at it. I hit it, did some ripples, and then here's it next to the rubber band ball. I shot it with a Nerf gun, then shot a giant rubber band at it, punched it, let it run, hit it some more, and it wouldn't pop, so I threw a basketball at it, then Flex Sealed so one day on it, bam. Then got out a plunger and tossed it at it, and it went pop. Like if I should buy another one. One day I had Purple send me a mattress to test their famous raw egg test. They basically slam a bunch of eggs on the mattress, and no matter what, it won't break the egg. Inside the mattress was these mini mattresses that were super stretchy because that's what they're made of. Then this mask, I opened up the mattress, unrolled it, cut open the plastic, and it aired up. It was pretty comfy. I was actually super impressed by the comfort. My dog even liked it. I had all these eggs to put it to the test. I first crushed one with the mini mattresses like that, and then I threw one at the mattress, tried to push on it, fall on it, and it just wouldn't break. So I tried on the couch as well, and it still wouldn't break. And even the rubber band ball wouldn't crush it. So then I tested the eggs to make sure they were still good. Yeah, they break. So I just chucked them as hard as I could, both at the mattress and the couch. They bounced off, and then I tried the 3-egg drop test thing. I fell flat on my back eventually, like that, and the eggs were perfectly fine, even after I fell like this. So I resorted to the 1,000-pound rubber band ball, which actually crushed them. And I was like, I'm going to take this cover off and see what's inside the mattress now. And it was actually pretty cool. I ripped this thing open, which I don't think you're supposed to do, but it felt really cool. Look at it. And it even holds the egg like this. Pretty cool mattress. So it's rubber band ball part 84, and I got another big box with 5-pound bags of rubber bands. And since the bands are too big to get on the ball now, we're going to have to loop them into 2 giant strands like this. We spent about an hour doing this, looping the entire pile until we had 2 giant strands. And we didn't know the best way to go about putting them on the ball. We moved everything out of the way and then realized eventually if someone was standing on a chair and then we ran around, it was easy, but it made us really dizzy. Eventually, we finished off the entire pile using this method, and then for the second pile, we moved the ball over a little bit to add bands on this side. And we figured out wrapping around like this was a lot easier and took like half the time. And the ball actually looks pretty cool now. I stood on it, then we pushed it onto the scale, and it weighs about 1,070 pounds, like if I should keep on going. So one day, after buying 2 of these 30-foot balloons, one that popped to a plunger and one that I tried to air up all the way, but the wind took a hold of it and popped it. So I bought a third one now to finally try to get it to 30 feet. I waited for a non-windy day and was sure to even wear gloves so I didn't get oil on the balloon. It kept on blowing up until eventually there were striations in the balloon and it popped. Here it is slow-mo several times. So that's maximum height. There was even a big cloud of dust. Comment any other ideas. So one day I ordered this stuff called Great Stuff, which is basically expandable foam insulation. And my goal was to build a boat out of it. Not just any boat, a cardboard boat. Because a while back I had a series on TikTok where I tried to make cardboard boats float, and I was never very successful. But I used the best cardboard boat design I knew how to make, and then I was going to cover the entire outside in the Great Stuff. And hopefully it'll float. So I finished taping up the entire bottom, like this. And I already had a decent looking boat. Then we covered the entire bottom in the Great Stuff. And then later we covered the rest of the sides. And when I came back the next day, it was solid looking. And it was ready to be tested in the creek. I walked it down and then got in. And I started to float away. It was working flawlessly without any problem. So I just kept on rowing and having a good time. And then I about ran into a tree. And then I started heading out further. And it was the best boat I'd ever made. I just kept going. So one day I saw a TikTok of a guy making one of those spinny art paintings, and it looked really cool, like this, and I was like, I could try that and make one. I put some flex tape on some screws in wood, made the frame, and then I squirted some red, white, blue, and green in the corners until I had this. It looked pretty neat, so I took it outside and started spinning, and it kept on going and going until it looked like this. And I didn't think I was going fast enough, so I tried again, but it still looked the same. And yeah, mine wasn't quite as good as the other guys, but let me know what you think. It's now rubber band ball part 78, and the ball is so close to 1,000 pounds. The scales broke, but the ball should be about 945 pounds, and we're placing a bunch more bands. We eventually rolled the ball to a higher point. That way it would be easier to get the bands around the ball. We did this for a while until eventually we were done. This band flew in the sky. The ball should be about 970 pounds, and it's huge. My friend Brendan did this, then I fell off it onto a beanbag, and like if I should keep on going. So it's giant rubber band ball part 77, and the scale doesn't really work anymore, but it's 920 pounds. We're so close to 1,000 pounds, and we're going to get it there soon. This pile weighs 25 pounds, and we placed the entire thing, which took quite a while, but eventually we were done, and I jumped on it, then sat on it, then laid next to it, then accidentally rolled it into the bang and drank it anyway, like if I should keep on going. Now rubber band ball part 81, and I bought this new scale that weighs up to 5,000 pounds. It weighed the ball in at 990 pounds, and today we're going to get it over 1,000 pounds. I also wanted to try some different strategies, these big mover bands and looping these 12-inch bands. I thought looping these 12-inch bands sounded the easiest because you could just loop them together and then wrap them around. We dumped out a bunch of bands like this and then started looping. We looped for a while and decided to go ahead and place one on, and it looked pretty good, so we kept on going until we had the entire pile finished. We ended up with these 2 giant lengths of bands. We wrapped one all the way around it, which made me kind of dizzy, and then wrapped the other one until we were done. And the ball looked pretty good. We weighed it in over 1,000 pounds, finally. I was pretty excited. So now we just got to get to the new world record, like if I should keep going. So one day I filled this pull-up with Orbeez in my last video, and then people wanted me to add more. And so I did. I bought like a few million more, added a bunch more water, then came back the next day and it looked like this. And the Orbeez were a lot less watered down this time. It was just solid Orbeez for days. And when I would fall in it, I basically just got stuck, and then I tried to swim like this. Then threw some Orbeez at the camera and tried to get on this floaty, and then skateboarded this little rubber band ball into the pool. Then I tossed it way up in the air to see what the splash would look like, and here's the slow-mo. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should fill this car with Orbeez. One day I decided to take this 500-pound pumpkin and carve it, make a jack-o'-lantern, and then do a giant elephant toothpaste experiment in it. And I just started off with a regular pumpkin carving kit, which wasn't going very well, so I started using a saw. Got the top off, and it was super thick. It was insane. And we began hollowing it out using a bunch of different methods. The spoon, a shovel, the crowbar. And it all only took about 20 minutes until it was looking pretty good. And the pumpkin was ready to carve. I drew a pretty basic-looking jack-o'-lantern face, and and began cutting. It actually was going pretty smoothly with the knife that came in the kit. I was shocked. I cut out the nose, the eyes, and the mouth, which was the hardest part, until it was done. It looked really good, and it was time for the experiment. I poured the stuff in a bucket inside the pumpkin, and then it was ready to go. And it went really fast and shut out the eyes and everything. And for not even measuring anything, it turned out pretty good. It looked really cool. I can't believe elephants brush their teeth with this stuff. So one day, about a year ago, there was this trend on TikTok where people were making these abstract paintings and selling them on eBay for a high amount of money. I made these two on my own that ended up bidding for a lot, but never sold. But I'm going to try my luck again. I went to Hobby Lobby, got a big canvas and some paint, and I was ready to make a highly valuable art piece. I decided to model it after my giant 1,000-pound rubber band ball. I started spreading out this blue paint, then a lot more, and then just dumped a bunch, trying to fill the entire background and make it blue. And after it was done drying, I came back with the yellow with a lot of swirls, trying to make the ball as abstract as possible and look really cool. I added the green and started kind of just doing that and mixing around until it looked like that. Then I started splattering paint everywhere, the white stuff, and trying to make it look starry and cool. And it ended up looking like this. I really liked it. I took some pictures of it, made the listing, and I called it Time Ball and gave it a really abstract, bizarre meaning. Follow to keep updated. So it's giant rubber band ball part 82, and I got a sample amount of these giant green rubber bands to test them out. They work really well, but for now I only have these rubber bands. The ball's just over 1,000 pounds, and these bands barely work anymore. They're way too tight. We had to prop the ball up as tall as possible to even fit the bands, but after a long time we were done with the entire pile. It's a little wonky, but here it is. Then here's me jumping on it, rolling around a little bit, and jumping off. And it was time to weigh it in. We got it on the scale, and it was going back and forth between 1,020 and 1,040, like if I should keep on going. So one day I found my old kangaroo shoes I hadn't seen in forever. They're supposed to make you run and jump super high. I put them on and struggled. I remember how hard they were to use. I walked for a little bit, then tried jumping, and I was struggling, so I put my hood on for safety. I then went over to the hoop, picked up a basketball, and shot it. It went right in. I guess it makes you better. But then I couldn't pick it up, so I went over to the ball and tried to see if I could really run on these. Here I am running, then dunking, and then running out in the wild, then trying to race my dog. She kind of took the lead. Then I started walking because I kind of lost my balance, but they're pretty cool. It's rubber band ball part 85, and I dumped out all these 12-inch rubber bands to loop them together and place them around the ball. My friend Brennan and I spent about an hour looping 25 pounds of these bands until we had 2 giant strands. And since in the last video we finally figured out the best method to loop them around, that was the easiest part. Here's the final strand, and it didn't take that long until it was completely covered. I tightened it on the ball, and this is what 25 pounds looks like. And here's a painting of the rubber band ball, then me next to it, then up close. And to be honest, I don't know how to work this super expensive scale I bought very well, but between all the pounds of bands I bought, it should weigh around 1,100 pounds. And it's a big ball, like for me to keep going. So one day I made this elephant toothpaste TikTok, and it didn't really work, so I kicked it and tried again with different stuff, and that kind of failed too. So I bought even more stuff, thinking I just ordered the wrong thing by accident, you know, but no, that's not it. So I tried again a week later with some more stuff, but first I was going to try it in a cup with a sample amount, and it kind of worked. So I went ahead and dumped all the stuff into the big jug to see if it would work. And it looked like it didn't, so I pretended to be a sprinkler, but then it started to overflow, and I sprayed it. So one day I was dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball off a bucket lift, and I had some cool stuff to drop on it, including an inflatable pool, an air mattress, and a giant water balloon. I started with this, and it did that. Here's the underwater slow-mo. It hit the water so hard it did this to the ball. Then I got out the air mattress and dropped it on it as well, and it didn't even pop. Look at it. But it did lose some bands when it dropped. So then I tried again with the pineapple on it, but I missed the pineapple. Then I did the water balloon, and it completely smashed it. Here's the slow-mo. And then it rolled off and went into the woods, and it just kept going down this very steep hill. Like if you want to see how I get it out. So one day it was rubber band ball part 44, and first I had to get the ball out of the zip line. I got it out, and then I had to carry it all the way upstairs. I made it up, and then I took it to the room where I placed all my bands and got to place them. I placed the entire pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands for quite a while until I was done, and I carried it all the way downstairs and weighed it in at like 164 pounds. Then I took it out to the street and just look at it. It's massive. Can't pick it up. I just can kick it. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day after people kept commenting for me to spend 24 hours in the storm shelter, I decided to sleep in it. I shoved an air mattress down there, had my MREs, and I was ready to sleep in it. I then left and came back later that night to actually sleep in it because I wasn't going to stay in there the whole time. I set up my lantern, turned on these lights, and I was ready to go. And it was pretty cool. I laid down and tried to go to sleep, and then my brother came out to check on me like 2 hours later. We talked for a bit. He told me the time, and then he left, and I ate my MREs. And I didn't put water in the eggs for they were bad, but the ice cream sandwich was still good. And then I went to sleep. And here I was the next morning, and it wasn't that bad of sleep. So after trying and failing to fix dents with hot glue, my comment section was filled with people telling me to let it cool down for even longer. So that's what I'm going to do. Here I am. Here's the time lapse of it cooling all the way until I didn't even have to touch it. And I then pulled it off and it didn't work. However, it is a pretty big dent. But there's other comments that said to try a plunger, so I tried that for a long time too, using fire and this plunger. This one might have worked if it was a smaller dent, so don't try this at home. So one day, someone commented for me to use hot glue sticks to try to get the dents out like 5-minute crafts. And I'm going to try, because I put quite a lot of dents in this car with my rubber band ball. I went to Walmart, got some hot glue sticks, and then went home to fix these dents. The little lighter wasn't big enough, so I got out this blowtorch, stuck it on, and it pulled the metal, but didn't work. So I tried again, and still failed. Yeah. So I got out the longer sticks with more fire, don't try this at home, and failed again. And then I tried to make a smaller dent with a bat, thinking the dents were too big, but that wasn't the case.
This is indeed cap.
So one day I put my 150-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush this car. And it was just a parts car my dad had laying around, so it wasn't a big deal. Pulled it back and threw it at it. And here's the slow-mo caving in that door. Then we saw a cat, and then I threw it at it again. And missed because we moved the truck, so we moved it again and threw it again. And this time it nailed it. It was a pretty big dent, but I still wanted more, so we did it again. And it knocked over the GoPro. Then we did one last go, and it was like the biggest dent yet. Let me know what else I should smash. So one day, people wanted me to fill this giant water balloon up and smash it with my over 1,300-pound rubber band ball. The problem is this ball is super hard to move. We barely got it outside. Stood on it like this, and then we began filling the water balloon up. It's supposed to be about 6 feet, but I'm not sure how big we'll be able to get it. We stopped it at a pretty decent size and then tried to roll the rubber band ball to it. And the huge ball had to go up a slight incline, which made it really hard. We got it on the balloon, but it didn't even pop. It wasn't exactly easy to keep trying, so we just threw this little rubber band ball on it like this, and it wouldn't pop. Until eventually I just threw it like this, and then bam, all the water went everywhere.
Best friend. Hey, excuse me. What did you just call her? Best friend? Who's asking? Me, bitch. And no, she's not your best friend. She can be your friend, but that's my best friend. The fuck? I've known her for 2 years. No, and I've known her for 300 years. How about that? Oh my god, we can both be her best friend. No, the fuck? What is this, a KFC share box? I don't really care. I'll call her best friend whenever I want. Call her best friend again. I dare you. Okay. Best friend.
So one day, my brother and his friend had an idea to take all the ball pit balls from my storm shelter and put them all in our friend Joe's office, who's an insurance agent. So we transported them all to the office, and we had to put them all in here. But first, I spun around in the chair a little bit and then got to pouring, and we poured out all the ball pit balls, and it was completely covered. I set the GoPro up. We shut the lights off and left, and he was supposed to come back in the morning, but he actually ended up coming in at midnight. And here was his reaction.
What the hell is this? No way. You guys got one this time. Next time, it's not gonna happen.
He then messaged me, so I zoomed over there to get his reaction.
What were you doing back here?
What do you mean? I come back all the time.
Here it is, completely covered.
Dylan, you're still recording me?
So one day after filling my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, people kept commenting for me to fill it completely up. So I bought a bunch more ball pit balls and started filling it up with an insane amount. I dumped every single bag in until it looked like this and left a mess of boxes. I then got a run for it and got scared and then went back and jumped in. It was pretty cool and cushioned my fall. And it's just completely full inside and I can bury myself in it. I threw them all in the air and then I went down under all the balls to check it out. And then popped back up. And then I chilled in it with the door shut, and it was kind of cool. So let me know what else I should try or do with my storm shelter. So one day I took my giant 140-pound rubber band ball to this hill to roll it down. And there's also a little jump at the bottom made of snow. I rolled it down, and it just kept on going, and then hit the jump. And here's a slow-mo replay. Wow. And then it zoomed off into the parking lot and just kept on going. It was going pretty fast, so I ran after it. And it went all the way into a soccer field. So I climbed over and look at the path it made, and it went all the way from there. So one day I rented a one-man bucket lift to drop my 160-pound rubber band ball on top of stuff. And the first time I went up, I just dropped it on nothing to see how it would bounce. And here it was. Bounced pretty high. And remember, don't try this at home. Then we got out this car to smash. Here's the slow-mo. It put a pretty big dent in the roof. Then my dad went up and dropped it on it. And it put another pretty big dent in the roof. Then I moved onto the windshield and completely caved it in. Here's that slow-mo. And then I did it again. Here's an inside perspective. Yeah, the car was pretty crushed. And then I dropped Mentos and Coke. And this one was the best rocket I ever done in my life. Just look at it. Like if I should crush some more stuff. So one day I got in my giant hamster ball to take it out in the snow and see how it did. And it made a little path. And then I got out to try to jump in it again and failed. So I then ran to this hill and tried to go over it but failed on that too. So I pushed it over and put more air into it so I could do it better. And I tried again and failed. And then this time I just failed again. But then I went around and fell out in the snow like this. And then I got out and made a snowball. So one day I rolled my rubber band ball back upstairs because I'm now at part 42. It weighs 123 pounds, and I dumped out 3 more bags, which is 15-ish pounds or something like that. And me and my brother got to placing them. And this was the most amount of bands I've ever placed, so we took a break and took it out to the snow. And I made a snowball, then threw it at it, and then rolled it around in the snow, rolled it over this hill, and then picked it up and dropped it. Then the next day I got back to placing, which was a huge pile that took me a long time to place, but I got it. And the ball was a bit deformed afterwards, but it's okay. It weighs 139 pounds now, and just look at it next to my head, if you want me to keep on going. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 43, and I got another box of rubber bands. I dumped them out, and these bands are even thicker than the last ones. I then dumped out another bag and got to placing them. And it was way easier to place these bands because they're twice as thick, and I got a lot more done with less time. I finished it up, and then I took it all the way downstairs to weigh it, and it weighed in at 149 pounds. I then took it out to the street to try to pick it up, and just look at it next to my head. It's huge, and I couldn't pick it up. If you want me to keep on going.
So one day I bought this $100 leaky metal boat, and I had my brother help me saw a big hole in it to take this Plexan glass and put it in with flex tape. And I got to flex taping in hopes of making my dream glass bottom boat. The front looked really solid, so we flipped it over and did the back as well. After that we let it set for a few days and then took it out to the pond. I felt ready to conquer my dreams. I pulled the boat onto the water and it seemed to be holding up pretty well. Look at it, it's amazing. I looked for some fishies inside the water but didn't see any. I wanted to travel all the way through the bridge and back, but water started leaking in the boat. But I remained calm and rowed back to shore to dump some of the water out and give it another shot. But then my brother really wanted to go, so I let him try. He did surprisingly well, rowing out very strong. And then this kayak passed him. He kept on rowing in my epic boat, and just like that, he was across, but a lot of water was getting in. So he made it back and then celebrated.
So one day I went to my local gas station to make the weirdest, wonkiest looking slush in the world. I had blue, red, Mountain Dew, and a splash of Coke slushy. Then I bought some candy like this and went home. I also decided to add some orange juice and some Sour Head Bang to the mix. I poured the Bang, then the orange juice, splashed the candy in like this, and started mixing. I stirred it for a little bit, but I wanted to get really shook up, so I poured it in this shaker bottle. I then just started vigorously shaking it all over, right here and then here, until it looked like this. I dropped a Minto in and then gave it a taste, and it was pretty weird. I let it sit overnight in the fridge and tasted it again. It was even more potent.
So one day, after I made a video with these moon shoes, the company sent me a box, which contained the original moon shoes, a yo-yo ball, and these soccer boppers that I let my brother hit me in the face with. I then opened the moon shoes and was kind of confused. I had to wrap a bunch of rubber bands to it like this. I then stood on it and it was pretty stable. Here's what it all looked like. I then strapped them on my feet and headed out the door, with the help of a cane. And the shoes were a little bouncy, but very hard to run in. Yeah, I'm not much faster. And here's my brother bouncing in slow-mo. And then he fell. So one day I wanted to get inside this giant inflatable dome and fill it completely up with water. I got inside with my gear, let it air up, and then began filling it up with water. I also taped up the seams so no water would get out, and then I just let it fill. But things started to go sideways. Literally, the dome was going sideways. We eventually got it kind of stable, and it looked like this cool oasis. The dome moved even closer to the woods, but it looked like it was staying stable. So now all I had to do was stay there and let the water fill up. I eventually got bored, started swimming around, goofing off, and then I discovered water was getting out of these holes. I felt defeated, but stay tuned because if this video gets enough likes, we're gonna try again on the concrete with even more tape. So one day, after seeing all these videos of people blowing bubbles with Jolly Ranchers, I had to try it out for myself. I got a bunch of Jolly Ranchers, put them all on this plate, and stuck it in the microwave for like 40 seconds. I waited until it was done and they were like sizzling. I used this straw from my water bottle, spun it around and tried to blow, but I only got this little bubble, so I tried again. I put them back in the microwave for a little bit less time this time, until it looked really good, so I tried again. And it was actually pretty insane. The bubbles just went everywhere. I wanted to keep on trying. I also wanted to taste it, which I did. It was pretty good. I melted some more and did one final blow. So yeah, this actually works and was a lot of fun.
So one day someone commented saying I should fill this entire purple mattress grid up with all eggs. I'm only going to put about about 60 eggs in there because I don't want to use that much food. I unzipped the mattress like this, and the purple grid is insanely cool. It looks like this and feels really awesome. I then opened up all the eggs and started placing them in. First one, and then a million more. Well, actually like 57 because 2 were broken, but yeah. I filled it as much as possible, and then it was time to fall on it and test them out. And the eggs did pretty good, so I got out my rubber band ball, but I couldn't even push it on, so I did another hop and then started stepping on the eggs like this, and it was crazy. They all just survived. So then I just punched one of the eggs like this and cracked it. Let me know what else I should try. So one day, after someone commented that I should fill my inflatable dome with the packing peanuts too, I decided to do it. I dumped out all the trash bags full of packing peanuts like this, and then dumped the hamster ball out until I had this. A giant dome full of packing peanuts that was also blowing them everywhere. I threw some in the air and then threw some at the blower, and it would just hit them back at me like this. It was kind of cool, but some of them kind of hurt. I tried to see how much I could take. Then I fell backwards, fell forward, and did a flip. And here I am just chilling in the dome. Comment any other things I should try. It's now rubber band ball part 87. The ball is 1,100 pounds, and this is 50 pounds of rubber band. I dumped out 25 pounds of rubber bands, and me and my friend Brendan were going to loop the entire pile. He looped half the bands, and I looped half the bands until we were done, and had 2 giant piles ready to place them on the ball. We propped up the ball to its tallest form to make it easier to place them around, and then went around and around while live streaming until we had the first pile done and the second pile, and it looked like this. The ball's insane. It should weigh 1,125 pounds, like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day my dog looked kind of sad, so I had an idea. Get my dog a puppy. I googled puppy and then got her one. I sat him down in front of Remy, and this was her reaction. She looked pretty happy, but the puppy didn't really know what to think. Remy taught him how to eat grass like this, and then got up real close to him, but he acted pretty shy. We named the puppy Rocco, and eventually his personality started to come out a little bit more. And him and Remy started to become really good friends. Be sure to like and follow to keep up with the puppy, and go follow him. Yeah. So one day my comments were amazed I was able to destroy a Nokia, so here I have another one that I bought for 25 cents. And when I slammed it, the back just flew off of it, so then I tried to roll my rubber band ball on it, and it was just kind of awkward because it wouldn't really go over it right. Eventually I just laid it down right here to run it over like this. We looked at it afterwards and it was pretty crushed. But I wanted it to be completely totaled, so I smashed it with this brick, and then I took his son, the younger Nokia. It's rubber band ball part 94, and we're going to add 50 more pounds or 2 more boxes of rubber band. The ball is currently 1,300 pounds and a long way from the world record. We got to it, looping all these bands as usual into 2 big piles. Here was the rubber band ball in all its awesomeness, and then we just kept on wrapping the bands around the ball like this. And in not too long, bam, 50 pounds was added onto the ball, and it's just completely massive. And at 1,350 pounds, it was pretty hard for me or my friend Brendan to push it. Kind of dangerous rolling, and be sure to give a like on this video if you want me to keep on going. So one day, a couple months ago, I ambushed my friend Brendan with this super powerful water gun. And today I decided to do it even better. Brendan told me he was at the gym working out and about to finish up. I filled the water gun completely up like this, and then it was ready to go. Here's a normal shot, and here's the most powerful shot. Then I shot around my dogs to try to scare him. Then I was ready to ambush my friend Brendan. I waited until he came out. Then I got a clean hit on him like this. He tried to run, but I kept on shooting. Then he came back.
What?
I acted like I was going to shoot him, then I just cleaned out the pavement and his car. Comment any other ideas. So one day I decided I was going to beat the world record for blowing the largest bubble out of bubble gum. Here was my first attempt. And my brother's. It was pretty challenging to make my bubble any bigger. They kept on reaching the same size and then popping, so I threw some more gum in my mouth. After that fail, I had this behemoth. That popped. And another pop. Then this one got stuck in my hair. But I hadn't lost hope. I had one more awesome bubble, threw the rest of the gum in my mouth, and then gave up. And sugar crash. So one day I wanted to spend a day in my kangaroo shoes that are supposed to make you run really fast and jump really high. They're really hard to balance on, so this is going to be hard. I tried to pick up this basketball but fell into my ball pit, so I had to scooch all the way over to the couch to get myself up. And I was up. I then did some more everyday tasks like throwing away the trash, going upstairs, which was very hard, and using the bathroom, which was hard too. Just kidding. I washed my hands, and then I had to go downstairs by scooching, and then I decided to take my dog on a walk. It was pretty good at first. She enjoyed it. Here I am running back, her following along, and then I slipped on ice almost. I tried to relax in him for a bit and watch this awesome rubber band ball guy, and then I went to the gym where I was going to get a sick workout with my kangaroo shoes. I had to have someone hand me the dumbbells because I couldn't bend over, and then I did some more curls, some pull-ups, some leg raises, and then I jumped down and was feeling good and motivated, so I decided to try to hit 2 plates. I went down and, no, was stuck. But no worries. I
I just got up and walked off in my kangaroo shoes. So one day, after trying to make spin art that turned out alright, but not as good as I'd hoped for, I decided to try again. Because everyone kept saying all I needed to do was buy more paint. So I bought more paint and this tiny canvas to try it too. I just put a lot of blue paint on there, as you can see, then green paint, spread some yellow across the edges, and I thought it was ready. It was dripping, and when it spun, paint went everywhere, and it got up to really fast, and yeah, it didn't quite turn out how I hoped. It turned out worse than the last one, but then I tried the tiny canvas, put some paint on it, spun it, and broke it. And it turned out the exact same. I was sad. One day I decided to run a mile on these moon shoes to prove to the comments that they weren't just a waste of money and see if they actually helped me run the mile faster. And I haven't ran a mile in over a year, so this is going to be pretty hard as is. And I did notice the shoes actually gave me a little bit of bounce as I ran. I definitely can feel the boing. Kept on running with my brother behind me until eventually we reached almost half a mile and I was exhausted. And my lack of training was starting to hinder the accuracy of this test because I got even more exhausted and had to take another break. But we were already approaching 7 minutes and my brother left me. Kidding, I caught him. But I kept on going, and then another issue. It broke. I had to pry the bottom piece back on the shoe and keep on running. I was completely exhausted, but I had to push through to try to get a decent time, and we were finished at 15 minutes. Comment any other ideas. So one day people were commenting how I was going to clean all these packing peanuts in my storm shelter up, so I thought I'd show a little behind the scenes of how we did it. I got some friends to help me. We got a lot of bags and boxes and just started filling them up. There was really no amazing shortcut around just scooping them all up and putting them into bags. But with the help of my friend Brennan, boxing them up and then dumping the boxes into the bags and scooping everything. After about an hour, we got most of it cleaned up, and then we scooped the rest into this bag like this, and also picked a lot up by hand. And the rest is completely 100% biodegradable. I will be storing all of this. This is my 1,250 pound rubber band ball, and it's part 93. Today we're going to be adding 2 boxes, which is another 50 pounds of rubber band, which will get the ball all the way to 1,300 pounds. This is the longest part, where we looped the pile into 2 giant strands of bands until it was finished and we were ready to add them both on. And I asked you guys to vote on a name for the rubber band ball, and the winner is between Pablo and just the rubber band ball. Comment what you think we should do. Here I am standing on the ball, then falling off, and I just can't justify how big it is on camera. Like for me to keep on adding bands. So one day I decided to take my super powerful water gun that shoots really fast like this and fill it completely up with Vooz. I dumped out the water and then dumped Bang's Vooz energy into this bucket like this, completely full, and it smelled really good. I put the gun in it, filled it completely up, and it shot like this. And when I blasted the Vooz can, it put a big dent in it. Then I aimed, shot all 3 cans, knocked them off, then shot the ceiling, drank it, and then completely blasted that can and tried to catch some in my mouth like this, and I just got wet. So one day I let this penny decide if I would spend my $40 at Target if it lands on heads, or the dollar store if it landed on tails. It fell to the ground and landed on tails. The dollar store. The goal was to get the most bang for my buck and get like 40 items, but everything was way more than $1. I got silly string, a punching bag, the star balloon, a phone magnifier, this bubble gun, and the Sour Patch. And now it was time to test out my purchases. The Sour Patch was really good. Then I got out the silly string, sprayed it all over the wall and my brother. Then I tried to spray it all on the ceiling and it fell down. I was like, what? I hit the star balloon, blew up this punching bag, hit it too, pretty hard. Then got out the phone magnifier, which actually worked surprisingly well. I could actually see my phone way bigger. And I saved the best for last, this bubble gun. So one day it was rubber band ball part 91, and today we're going to get it over 1,200 pounds. We opened these rubber bands perfectly normally, and then we just started looping the giant pile like we normally do. And I'm in the works to get a ton more rubber bands because we're going to have to really increase the production rate if we want to ever beat that world record. We wrapped both strands around, 1 and then 2, like this. And there you can see all the bands we placed. Looks like a ring. I jumped on the ball and stood on it, looked really cool, then pushed it forward a little bit and threw another rubber band ball at it. So like if you want me to keep on adding rubber bands. So one day after I filled this giant hamster ball completely up with packing peanuts, people kept commenting telling me to fill it up completely to the top. So that's what I'm going to do. I unzipped the ball and started pouring until it reached the top. It was so full. I stepped into it and it was really deep. Put my head in and put the blower in and started airing it all the way up. Once it was aired up, I rocked around, splashed the peanuts, and then started running. You couldn't even see me because of all the packing peanuts. And remember, don't try this at home. I'm a pro. I did 2 big rolls in it, like this, and then I just started running. And you couldn't even see me until I stopped. Here I am chilling. I threw some peanuts at the camera and then ran off into the distance. So one day it was really windy, so I took my hamster ball out to try to make it fly away. I started bouncing and kicking up in the air, seeing if the wind would take it, and then I rolled over it like this. Then I attached this paracord to it to see if it would spin off into the air. It caught a little bit of wind, but I didn't have much luck, and then I just fell. I spun it one more time really fast like this, threw it, and then got on it again and slid off. I then randomly decided to fill it up with packing peanuts again, and it felt like a beanbag.
And then I just aired it all the way up. And if this video gets enough likes, I'll fill it up with helium. So one day I wanted to build one of these air cannons that I kept seeing on videos. So I went to Walmart and got a trash can, a tarp, an elastic band, and some tape, and then I left. And I also ordered this humidifier on Amazon. That was pretty cool. I tested it out, and then I got to work building the air cannon. Putting the tarp over the hole, then putting this thingy on, and then I realized I did it completely backwards, so I had to redo it until it looked like this. And it was decently powerful and ready for the fog. I put it in there, and it made these awesome rings that went really far. It was so cool. They just went forever and ever. I shot over this can, and then shot the camera like this, then shot my rubber band ball myself like this, and then started shooting the ceiling. Let me know what else I should try. So it's rubber band ball part 86, and my giant 1,100 pound rubber band ball needs more bands to get heavier. We dumped out 25 pounds of these bands to loop around the ball. And we have to loop all the bands now because these bands are too small to stretch around the ball. And bigger bands than this are way too expensive and really hard to find. But eventually we finished looping the entire piles, which is the longest part, but then began the shortest part, which is just looping and looping until we were done. Then we started on the other one and looped it until it was done. Tied it, and here it is. We rolled it across the warehouse, rolled it off the ramp, and the ball should be around 1,125 pounds, like for me to keep going. So one day I ordered these bouncy moon shoes that I saw on TikTok off of Amazon. Here they are. They look pretty cool, and they're supposed to be really springy, kind of like my kangaroo shoes, and make you jump really high. I was pretty excited to test them out. I put them on, strapped it in, and then I was ready to go. And here's an up-close shot of me jumping. You can see the spring kind of activate. I ran around, jumped, and then I decided to get on the trampoline for some double spring action, and it actually kind of worked. I did this flip thing, and then I took it to the street to really test out the speed, and it actually helped me run a little bit, but jumping not so much. Then I tried to go upstairs, and it actually wasn't even that hard, so then I took it to a trail and ran a while. Then came back and tried to really jump out, like if I should try to run 1 mile in these things. So one day I took my $177 moon shoes that are supposed to make you jump really high, and I tried to play basketball with them. I wanted to test if they could make me a better basketball player, and here's me jumping off the rubber band ball and falling. So then I took them to a gym, and it didn't start off very good. I kept missing like this, but I decided anyway to challenge the tallest guy in there to a 1v1. I missed my first shot, but so did he, so it's okay. The only real advantage I could feel was the height. I eventually made one with really bad form. Even though the shoes helped me, he was just way more athletic than me, and he was also already 6'8". But hey, look at the shoes can make me do this and this. Whoa. So one day, after people kept telling me to fill this giant 30-foot balloon up with helium instead of air, I went to Party City and got 2 helium tanks to try and make my dog Remy fly. First, I aired it up with the first one, like this, and it wasn't very much helium, so I got out the second one, and I really didn't end up with that much helium, yeah, but it's super expensive, so we're going to try to make it work. I was hoping Remy would run and the balloon would fly up, but she didn't really. She ran a little bit here, and then I got scared she was going to run into a tree, so I took it and couldn't make it fly. So sad. So one day, to prove to the people in my comments that these shoes actually work, I took them to the gym to test their agility against my friend Brendan, who is considerably more athletic than me. We both did this bounce thing like this and did it fairly easy. Then I pushed this sled, which was a bit of a struggle, and hopped on this thing, which was also a struggle, but Brendan did it pretty easy. I eventually got the hang of the box jumps like this, but Brendan could still do it better. Then I just randomly had an urge to try a bunch of random things in the gym, like this stair stepper thing that I got going pretty fast on actually, and was still able to do it. Then my friend Austin wanted to try squatting. He did the bar first. We were trying to test if the shoes gave him a boost on the way up, but I think it just made it harder. He also tried to deadlift. Remember, don't try this at home. We are trained professionals. Then I decided to race my friend Brendan, and sadly he won. So overall, I just think the shoes make it lighter on your feet. So one day someone commented saying I should try to crush an old Nokia phone with my 1,200 pound rubber band ball. And I'm going to be doing this and testing the durability of a lot of older phones and this slightly newer Nokia as well. We did a drop test with these 2 phones first and threw them like this and dropped a rubber band ball on them, and even rolled a giant rubber band ball on one of them and stuck it inside the rubber band ball as well. But now it was time to test the 2 Nokias. We did a basic drop test and the older Nokia held up the best, but now it was time to crush it. I could hear the crunch and it rolled onto the Nokia, but it honestly didn't even do that much damage. So I dropped a brick on it like this and then dropped it on it again, and it was pretty destroyed. Comment what else I should try. It's part 92 of my giant 1,200 pound rubber band ball, and we're going to add 2 boxes, which is 50 pounds, and more than we've ever added in one video. We had all the bands ready, which was a lot, and we were ready to just loop them all. I'm slowly going to be bumping up my rate of production, that way we can eventually get the world record. We looped the entire pile until it looked like this, then wrapped each strand around the ball. There's 25 pounds, and here's another 25 pounds wrapped completely around the rubber band ball. And my phone just doesn't justify how big this ball is. It is so insane and so hard to move. The ball should weigh around 1,250 pounds now, and it's really tall. To give you an idea, I'm 6'1", and here's me jumping on it. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands to beat the world record. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and it's getting pretty huge, and I'm probably not stopping. So I went to Walmart, got all the colored rubber bands they had, then went home, dumped out the bag of normal rubber bands, and placed that entire pile, which was kind of hard because of how big the rubber band ball is now. Then I took a couple days off and came back to place all 8 bags of colored rubber bands, which took a while, a long while. But eventually I finished, and it's huge now. It weighs 21.6 pounds and is a lot harder to throw and catch than it used to be, and almost impossible to make a basket with, like if you want me to keep going. So one day I decided to prank my brother with fake spray paint on his truck. But I needed more, so I went to Walmart and got some. And then I started with the blue, just writing a bunch of random stuff and scribbling. And when I was out of that, I got to the orange, writing a bunch more random junk. And when I ran out of that, this side was pretty much done, so I switched over to the next side and finished it. And go ahead and like the video since I'm not making you wait for the reaction. And here it is.
This is a joke, right? What'd you do? What'd you do? This is fake, right?
It's real, bro.
This is real spray paint.
And when he touched it, I think he realized it was fake, so we pulled it out to the cul-de-sac and washed it. And then he tried to spray me. Yeah. So one day I decided to take my rubber band ball and a bunch of other random stuff to a pawn shop like I did before when my rubber band ball was a lot smaller. But now it's bigger and I'm back.
Oh yeah, that was a rubber ball. That was bigger. How many bands is it now?
I don't know. I brought some more items too. I made this in junior high, a one-of-a-kind CO2 car.
Did you win?
No.
Oh, it's a loser car.
He then looked at it and didn't want to buy it. So I showed him
This is
this.
a can of air.
It's about empty though.
Well, I used it a little bit.
And I said it was worth,
$50.
and he said no, so I showed him the next item.
I found this at an abandoned race car track. A genuine gold cup.
Then he asked why I thought it was gold.
It looks gold.
And he even tested it and found out it was stainless steel, so I brought out the rubber band ball.
It's probably the most famous rubber band ball you'll ever see. Its intrinsic value, probably $5,000.
How'd you come up with that value?
I just did.
He didn't want to buy it, but he gave me the good idea to put it on eBay.
Like eBay.
That's a neat idea. I might do that.
So then I left. Let me know if you think I should put it on eBay. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and to be honest, at this point I'll probably never stop. So I went to Walmart, got a bunch more rubber bands, then left, went home, dumped out all the colored rubber bands, and began placing them. Until I was done with the entire pile, which took a while. But I did it, then took a break and came back later to start on the pile of normal rubber bands. And I placed that entire pile covering all the colored rubber bands. So sad. Then took another break, came back and dumped out all the thicker rubber bands and began placing them until I was out. And the ball now weighs 19.2 pounds and is a lot harder to throw and way harder to make a basket with. Yeah, it's pretty big, so like if you want me to keep going. So one day I went to Walmart to get a Power Wheels, but they were too expensive, so I left and got this used Viper that needed a battery instead. I went to the battery store and got what I needed, then went home, screwed off the seat, then put the new battery in and screwed the seat back on and got on it and took off. And drove down the driveway and into the road where it wouldn't move. So I gave it a little push and then I headed for the ramp where I made a massive jump. Then I drove pretty fast down a hill, but the problem was getting back up the hill. And we ended up having to carry it, and then I put it in my car and took it out to the country to really open it up. I drove out to the road and floored it. Gone I went, and then I ended up crashing. And I got up and ran into the field, leaving behind my awesome Viper. So one day I ordered that TikTok apple juice stuff because all I could find in the store were these glass bottles that didn't crunch. They tasted good, but no crunch. Now we're going to find out if it's actually real. Ready?
What? Wait.
And we both just sat there in amazement, and then I compared it to a real apple. And it sounded more like an apple than an apple.
Haha, and you thought it was editing.
Then I threw the real apple and ran off yelling. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and it's pretty big now, but everyone wanted it bigger, so I went to Walmart to get more bands, but they were out, so I went to a different Walmart and got some. Then went home, set down a pile of bands, and got busy placing the entire thing until it was done. And then I dumped out a few more bags, and first placed the bag of smaller rubber bands, and then the bags of thicker rubber bands until I was done with that. And it now weighs nearly 16 pounds, and still bounces pretty high, but it's hard to catch now, and it makes a decent basketball. Like if you want me to keep going. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball and people seem to never want me to stop, so I went to Walmart, got a bunch more rubber bands, and then went home to start placing them. I dumped out the little bags first and began placing all of those until I was done, which took a while. Then I left and came back later to place all of the colored rubber bands, which took even longer, but now it looks pretty. I left again and came back to place the last bag of thicker rubber bands, and it was finally done. And it now weighs 17.5 pounds, is bigger than my head, and is pretty hard to catch when you bounce it. And now it's noticeably bigger than a basketball, like if you want me to continue this ball. So one day I went out to this really cool natural spring in Florida, and I had to jump off this ledge to get in. So I did, and it was freezing. But it was also really clear, so I put my goggles on and swam on down. And then resurfaced for some air, and then went back down and spotted this really cool underwater cave and some fishies. And then I went back up and got some flippers to better navigate the water. I got in with them, and they did help a lot. And then I got sidetracked and went to this little waterfall and this tree I touched, and then drank some of the water in case it was the fountain of youth. And then I swam back down to the cave, and I could touch the entrance before I had to swim back up for air. And then I swam down to a different cave I saw, and it was pretty cool. And then I swam back up and met this kid that followed me on TikTok. I talked to him for a bit, and then I left because I was cold. So one day I took a Power Wheels to a fast food place. I got in and drove on up after a lot of struggle. And then I pressed the button to order my food.
I would like a corn dog and a large tot. All right, thank you.
Then a car drove by and said,
500. Thank you. My daddy bought it.
I then sat there, waved at the camera, then played with all the car's buttons. And eventually my food came.
A corn dog and a large tot.
Yep.
Catching exercise.
All right, thank you much.
Good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Then I drove away with my food, and I think this is going to become my new go-to vehicle. And it was a good corn dog. So one day I ordered all this stuff to make elephant toothpaste. I dumped out all the water, then added the first bottle, some food coloring, and the last thing, and it did nothing but fizz up a little. I guess I ordered the wrong thing. I kicked it and then blew the cap off. And then I went to Walmart to get the stuff to try again, and they were out, so I calmly left and went to a different store. And they sort of had what I needed. And I went home, added the peroxide, the dish soap, the food coloring, and the yeast. And just my luck, I think the container was too big, and it just foamed up a little. So I dumped it out, and then sang a new hit single.
Sometimes I don't want to be happy.
Then I touched it,
Elephants really brush their teeth with this stuff?
and bended it, like if I should try this again. So I've been making this rubber band ball for way longer than I thought I'd be, and I'm just gonna keep going. So I went to Walmart, and they were out of rubber bands, so I left and came back a few days later, and they had some. I went home, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And it's honestly just so satisfying to watch the pile go down. And when I was done, I left and came back later with a new bag that I ordered on Amazon. And the band seemed good, so I placed the entire pile until I was done. And it now weighs 23.6 pounds, is way bigger than my head, and it's really hard to throw, and even harder to make a basket with. But I made one. Like if I should keep going. So one day, my family and I rented these cool scoot cars. I got in the green one, revved it up, and then took off. And traffic was kind of slow, so I stopped and beeped at a yellow one I saw. And then continued on down the coast. And my brother didn't like my driving that much, but I thought it was great. And we eventually made it to this curve thing where I raced my dad round and around. It was pretty hard to turn though, and I almost hit the curb. And my dad did hit the curb. Then I decided to ride passenger and just enjoy the ride and the view. And I saw a helicopter. Then we pulled up to this ice cream place where I got out and waited for my brother. Then went in and got ice cream that they actually rolled up and put into a cup and then handed to me. And it was pretty good. I then switched to the red car and drove out to a gas station where I filled it up and then drove it back. So one day it was my brother and I's birthday, and he got me a rubber chicken. And then I drove to the dollar store to get him something. I went to the toy aisle, browsed around, and got a silly hand, a kazoo, a slinky, and to be funny, a get well soon balloon. Then some silly string from my own idea. And some lifesavers to, you know, treat myself. I then went home and gave him the balloon. Then the kazoo. And the silly hand that he hit the camera with. And the slinky, then this. Happy birthday. Get well soon. So one day I wanted to see what all I could destroy from dropping my band ball up high. So I went to Walmart, got a chair, a Hot Wheel, a lot of Diet Coke, a container, and a watermelon. Then I went home, set up a ladder, and dropped the Diet Coke, and it did nothing. So I threw it, and then I dropped the band ball in another bottle. And when that failed, I shook it up and did it again. And it worked. And then my brother threw me one that I dropped. And after that, I decided to crush the Hot Wheel, and it held up pretty well. And then I dropped the 21-pound ball on the bin, and it did the most damage so far. But not enough. And after that was this tiny chair thing that got kind of broken, and I fell. Next, we dropped it on a water gun, and a piece came off. Then I shook the rest of the Diet Coke up and knocked them over, and then threw them all, one by one. And all this destroying was a lot like this game I've been playing where you drop and smash random stuff. Click the link in my bio if you want to download it. And lastly was the watermelon, and it got crushed. And I even ate some. So one day I decided to cartwheel across America. Well, like half of America. I cartwheeled way out of my neighborhood and on down into Arkansas, where I cartwheeled for quite a while until I made it to Mississippi, where I also cartwheeled for a while, but not quite as long, and then on up into Alabama, and then from there, clear on up into Florida, where my cartwheeling eventually got pretty bad. But the point is, I kept going clear on out to the ocean, and on into the water. Yeah. So one day I ordered a giant water balloon. I tried to figure out how I was going to fill it up, and then I thought, rubber bands. And then I began filling it up until eventually it started to leak. And I tried to fix it, but failed, so I just had my brother hold it while I jumped.
No.
Yeah, pretty cool. Now here's the slow-mo. Wow. And it was broken. Like if I should do it again. So one day I wanted to make a giant paper airplane because my last one failed, so I went to Walmart, got some tape and some poster board, and then went home to start construction. I started by positioning 4 pieces together, and then I took some tape and taped them all together. Then I flipped it over and taped all the creases on that side. Next, I folded it in half, laid on it, and then unfolded it and folded all the little necessary folds in order to make the plane. I folded one side down, added some tape, and then folded the other side down and added some tape. Then I folded the plane in half and folded down one wing, and then folded down the other one. I added some more tape to it, and I was done. So I put it in my car and drove on out to a bridge to throw it off. It was kind of flooded, but I threw it anyway, and it totally failed. So I went down there, over a puddle, and into the woods to go get it. I got it out of the water, and it was totally destroyed. Like for part 2 for me to make a better one. So one day I ordered a life straw that's supposed to allow you to drink any water. I opened it up, read the package, and then tried to drink with it. And it had the wrong end, but the other end wouldn't fit. So I went and got a container, dumped my drink into it, and then drank out of the wrong end again. And the straw made it taste kind of funny, so I got up and went to test it on hot tub water. And let's just say it still tasted like hot tub water. I spit it out, and then I left and went to the creek to test out the creek water. I put my straw in the water and started drinking it. And
Tastes like water.
I took another drink from the creek, and then I threw the straw around my neck and left. Part 5 of making a giant rubber band ball. So I've been making this rubber band ball, and I ran out of rubber bands, so I went to Walmart. Got a bunch more rubber bands, and then I went home, dumped 2 bags out, put some gloves on so I didn't break my skin again, and started placing the bands. And then left and came back the next day to finish off the pile. It looked pretty good so far, and then I forgot to video placing a whole nother bag. But it looks like this, and then I dumped out all the colored rubber bands and started placing them all on the rubber band ball. And I was done, and it was almost the size of my head and weighed 8.2 pounds. And bounced pretty high. And also made a decent basketball, like if you want me to keep going. So one day I went to Walmart to get a bunch of bars of soap to make one of those satisfying soap videos. I went home, opened up one of the bars of soap, and got to cutting it. And it was actually working and looked so satisfying. It would just curl up and be a little strand. And then I cut it into a brick shape and cut all that, which was really cool. Next up was the green bar, and it was also really cool. So I made it into a brick also, and it was even cooler than the other one. A bunch of tiny stuff just scraped off. And next up was the dove, and I about chopped my finger off because it was so hard to cut. Then I mutilated this bar and totally didn't fake this knife throw. Whoa! Yeah. So one day I went to Walmart to get the stuff to make my biggest cardboard boat yet. I got a lot of tape and a lot of cardboard, and then I left and went home to start building. I set up one sheet to start, and then I added another. I taped it all together, and then I added a final piece. Taped that piece down, and then I taped all the flaps down. And then after that, I started adding a second story of cardboard on top of this one to make it look more cool like a ship. I put the final piece on and then taped all around it to seal it together. And I taped all these flaps down as well. And then I got in with another sheet of cardboard to tape down the base. And then I flipped the boat over and started adding as much tape as possible to the bottom to try and waterproof it. And I ran out. Like for part 2 where I put it in the creek, or watch the full video on my YouTube later today. So one day I wanted to make a cardboard saw like the paper saw I made. So I traced out a blade, cut it out, and then screwed it onto the angle grinder. And then I was ready to cut some fruit. I turned on my saw and started in on the apple. And it was working pretty well, so I kept going. And eventually I started in on the grapefruit, which ended up ruining my blade. So I took it off and made a new one from a cereal box. And then I screwed it onto the grinder and started trying to cut the cereal box in half. And it did pretty well and almost cut it entirely in half. And after that, I started back in on the grapefruit, which ended up running this blade too. So I ripped the grapefruit in half and then threw it in the woods, and also threw the rotten apple in the woods. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and I'm just going to keep adding rubber bands every time Walmart restocks. So I went there, got a few more bags of colored rubber bands, then went home and started with the 2 bags I ordered on Amazon. I placed the entire pile until you couldn't see a colored rubber band in sight. And then I left and came back later to place the colored rubber bands I got at Walmart. And I placed it until I was done. It's huge and now weighs almost 26 pounds, is super hard to throw and really hard to catch, but I can still make a basket with it and even stand on it now. Well, kinda. Like if you think I should keep going. Cardboard boat part 2. So I picked up the boat and put it in my brother's truck along with an oar. Then we went down to the creek and I carried it down. Then I walked out to my launching point, got in, and pushed off.
Good job for you.
It was working. I kept on rowing, and it eventually started to leak. But I still kept on rowing. I was approaching a current, so I rowed it to land and dragged it all the way back.
It worked.
I rowed in it some more, and then I drug it up. Full videos on my YouTube at Dylan Ayres. Cardboard boat part 2. So I picked up the boat and put it in the bed of my brother's truck, and then took it down to the creek, got it out, and carried it down. I put it in, the water was already leaking when I tried to get in, so I pushed it over to a ledge and tried to get in from there, but it just sank. And I tried to row in it, but it was just a fail. So then I got out, pulled it to shore, folded it up, and then took it home for repairs, like if I should try again. So one day I decided to see how much a pawn shop would give me for my rubber band ball. So I got in my car and drove out to one, but it was closed for another 30 minutes. So I waited, ate a burrito, and then went back in and said, I got this rubber band ball.
Okay.
I want to sell for $200.
Why do you think it's worth $200?
I put a lot of time into it. It's a lot of rubber bands,
How many rubber bands are in there?
like 14 bags.
How many is in a bag?
I have no idea. But it weighs 6.5 pounds.
Wow, does it bounce? Wow, bounces pretty good. Well, how old are you?
16.
You gotta be 18 before you can do anything with it.
And then he said he'd give me $100 for it if I counted all the rubber bands and had someone 18 sell it for me. So I thought about it and said, 200.
No, I can't go 200 on it, but that'd be worth just watching you count that many rubber bands for $100.
500.
I couldn't get $500 out of a rubber ball.
How much do you think you could sell this for?
$50.
I'm gonna have to walk.
All right. Appreciate you coming in.
So then I walked out with my rubber band ball, and I guess I'm just gonna have to keep adding bands. So one day I ordered a go-kart attachment for my hoverboard. I got all the parts out, and then I looked at the instructions and tossed them. And after that, I quickly realized I needed them, and then I started putting everything together. I finished it all up, and then strapped it to my hoverboard, and then got on it and drove out the door. I drove to the driveway, and then through a puddle, and then down the road, and lost control. And then lost control again and hurt myself.
You sound like a whale.
I pulled it out of the ground and the hoverboard wouldn't work anymore. So I tried to fix it by tossing it. And when that failed, I got all sad. But then I had the thought, I'll just go to Walmart and blow all my money on a new one. So I got there, pushed the button, and then took it home. And then I put my go-kart attachment on it to ride it around. I kept riding, and then I also failed on a wheelie. And then I made my way towards a hill to go down it, and ended up losing control again and going into someone's yard and then doing it again. And then the next day, the broken one worked somehow, and I wheelied it and spun on it and finally drifted out. So one day I went to the party store and got a bunch of giant balloons and a helium tank, and then went home to see what I could make fly away. I already had 2 blown up. I blew up the first red one, tied it, and then I blew up the second blue one and tied it. And now I had 4 balloons. And then I twisted and taped all the strings together and tried to lift up a weight, but it failed. So then I tried an apple. And it worked. After that, I had an idea to tie a box to the strings and send something away. I trimmed up the box and forgot the 4th balloon. So I tied it on and then went outside and taped a Tesla Hot Wheel to the box and tried to send it to space. And it went down. So I ripped off some cardboard and it still failed. I ripped off some more and it went to my roof, then fell off. I let it go a final time and it took off and left on into space. So one day I decided to take a moped out on the highway. I took off and headed out through my neighborhood. And I took it all the way to the highway, where I floored it to a max speed of 40 in a 55. And it was so much fun. I was just living life. And eventually I turned off onto a more mild road. where I went for quite a while just driving and admiring the view. It was really pretty and pretty cool. Then I came to an intersection and turned back around and stopped, got off and got a piece of grass, then got back on my moped and took off with the piece of grass. And I went all the way back to the highway and then floored it, and I went over the bridge but couldn't quite make it up the hill. And I think something broke, so I pulled over, stopped, and it wouldn't go. So I got off and rolled it all the way back up to my neighborhood, then got tired, so my brother did it. So one day I decided to go for a run. So I got up out of my chair and took off in my kangaroo shoes. I didn't know where, why, or how far I was going, but I just kept running. I ran all the way to the street, and when I got there, I just kept going. I just continued on running through my neighborhood, one foot after the other. And before long, I had ran all the way out to the countryside. And I just still kept running. And I just ran until I went into a ditch, you know? So one day I went to Walmart to get the stuff to retry my failed cardboard boat attempt. I got a bunch of tape and a pretty good amount of cardboard. And then I left, went home, and started building. I first began by setting up one sheet and taping it down. And then I added a second sheet and used a lot of tape to tape it to the first one. After that, I connected the two with a final sheet of cardboard and used a lot of tape to secure it. Next, I folded down all the flaps with a bunch of tape to make it thicker and float better. Then I flipped it over to tape the bottom, and I also added the base sheet and taped that down too. I finished taping that and then flipped it back over to tape the bottom up, and also added another sheet of cardboard for more support. Then finished off the boat by taping up the entire bottom to waterproof it. And it was done and ready to be tested in the creek. Like for part 2, or just watch the full video on my YouTube at Dylan Ayres. So one day I was just scrolling through TikTok and I kept seeing this apple bottle trend. So I drove to Walmart and went to the juice aisle to look for it. But there was none. So I left and went to a nearby Dollar Tree to look. And there was none there either. So I left and went to Target to look. And all they had were these big bottles that didn't crunch like an apple at all. And I bought the bottle I bit cause germs. And then left, went home, and then went back to Walmart the next day to look again. And then to a neighborhood market that had them, or so I thought. I took them home, opened one up, and then bit into it. And it wouldn't crunch.
That doesn't sound like an apple.
I had got the glass bottles, but I drank it anyway, and it was pretty good, so I just kept drinking it.
So as you guys know, I have a series where I try to make a genuine Prince Rupert drop that's indestructible but shatters when you break the tail. And I even tried melting one in Gatorade like this. And now I want to see what happens when you melt one in 3 very different liquids, starting with this Mountain Dew. I filled it completely up with Mountain Dew and then began melting the drop until it fell in and shot like a rocket like this and started fizzing up all over. And then I pulled it out to see if it was intact, and it was. It looked like a genuine Prince Rupert drop. And then I snipped the tail to see if it would shatter like a normal one, and it didn't. It looked like this, but we moved on to the oil. I filled it completely up with oil and then began melting the second drop, and it fell in and immediately started smoking.
Whoa, it's smoke.
So I blew the smoke like this, and then I pulled the drop out of the water, and it looked legit. It had a little weird thing in the center, so I wanted to see if it was indestructible. Hit it once, and then it shattered the second time I hit it. So I moved on to the last liquid, this aloe vera gel, which was really weird and gel-like and not very much a liquid. When it fell in, it just submerged like this and made this weird noise. And it also smoked in the aloe vera like this, which was pretty crazy. Then I pulled it out to see how this one turned out, and it was covered in the aloe and was much shorter than the other one. So let me know what else I should try. So one day I wanted to test dropping one of these giant, insanely strong ostrich eggs into a pool of oobleck. The substance that's a solid when you hit it, but a liquid when you move slowly through it. So we're gonna see how high we have to go for the egg to break.
First drop is a waist-high drop. Surely this won't break.
And the waist-high drop did literally nothing to the ostrich egg.
Time to go higher. See if the egg survives.
And it was again unharmed.
The egg is intact. Let's see if the ostrich egg survives this. 3, 2, 1. It hit a little bit harder. Let's check it out.
And again, not a scratch on it.
We're up a lot higher. My guess is it breaks now. 3, 2, 1.
There is no cracks whatsoever.
This is as high as I can go. So I'm just gonna hold it like this and hopefully we hit the oobleck.
And this was the hardest hit by far, but still no damage.
Since that failed, I'm just gonna throw it really hard down at it. 3, 2, 1.
And now, since we couldn't go higher, I had a different plan.
Now I'm just gonna attempt to throw it really high and hope it lands on the oobleck. Oh God.
Well, I missed. So I made this $700 gold nugget from all the gold I found in $1,000 worth of these dirt bags. And now today I'm testing 3 different brands of these dirt bags to see which one gives me the most gold for my money. I started with the cheapest bag of dirt that was $26 for 2 pounds of dirt. I first sifted the entire bag to separate the smooth dirt from the big chunks like this. And pretty soon we found our first chunk of gold right here. I picked it up and continued searching until we found another chunk like this. I put it in the jar and kept on searching, found another one that was massive, and then when I was about to pour it all out, we found this one right here, bringing the total weight to 0.14 grams or $9 worth of gold. And now the next bag is this very small bag I bought for $55. And immediately I found this very tiny chunk I put in the container, and then these really dirty looking chunks right here. And we only ended up finding these 2 little more chunks, bringing the total weight to only 0.04 grams or $2.62 worth of gold. Pretty terrible for the money. And this bag was $63, but also had the most amount of dirt. I sifted it and there was a ton of chunks to look through. My first piece was a pretty good looking nugget that I put in the container, and then we found this other one that also was pretty decent size. And then we took all the rest of the dirt and ran it through this water machine to see if we could get any other little nuggets, and we actually got this many. And after adding one by one, the total weight of the gold was 0.16 grams or $10.50. Like if I should add it to my gold ball. Today I'm moving my 1,200 pound rubber band ball to my warehouse. And if you don't know the story, I started this ball back in 2020 after using rubber bands to explode a watermelon. And after a few years it grew into this massive ball, and it's just been sitting here in my garage for a while. So now it's time to move it to a bigger space so we can work on it again. And we had to bring out the big machinery to move it out of the garage like this. And we were able to pick up the ball and move it out of the garage, which looked insane. Then the FedEx guy saw it and recognized it, so he needed a picture by it. Then we continued on moving the ball on down the road, and we moved it all the way through my neighborhood and up onto this trailer, which looked absolutely ridiculous. And I just watched in awe as we were able to get it on the trailer and stabilize it. Then we loaded it up and took it to the warehouse, where we then unloaded it off the trailer and drove it directly into the warehouse and then to the spot where we would begin working on it again. We unhooked it and rolled it off into the spot, and thankfully it didn't run into the wall, and we perfectly succeeded in moving it. So comment down below what you guys want me to do with the rubber band ball.
Yeah! This thing's freaking huge.
So I have an ongoing series where I try to make a genuine Prince Rupert's drop that's indestructible but shatters when you snap the tail. And you guys told me that I've been using the wrong kind of glass this whole time. So today I ordered this special flint glass off Amazon to try again. And this type of glass melted way faster than the other type, but for some reason it shattered as soon as it hit the water. It shattered. So I tried again melting another drop, but it also shattered. And then we moved on and made another drop, and it ended up being a super tiny drop, but it didn't shatter. And it looked pretty good. I then tested this other trick where apparently you can take a polarized sheet and you're supposed to be able to see lots of colors, but the drop wasn't genuine, so I moved on and made another drop, and this one didn't shatter either. And I pulled it out and it looked amazing. It looked like it could actually be a genuine Rupert's drop. It looked super shiny and rounded, but it also had these little bubbles inside. But I decided to test it anyway. I first tested its strength by hitting it with a hammer 2 times, and it just stuck to the hammer. So I then had to snap the tail to see if it was genuine, and it did not shatter, making it a fake drop. Let me know what else to try. What would happen if you dropped a real-life anvil on top of your foot? And since I don't want to find out the hard way, I have this ballistic foot here with real bones designed to simulate what would happen to a real foot. But first, to demonstrate just how powerful the anvil is, we're going to use it to try to break open this safe. We dropped it a couple times like this, and then I just threw it on top of it like this.
Caved the door
And we got it open.
That worked. Now let's see what happens to the ballistic foot. This thing's got real bones and should simulate what would happen to a real foot. All right, footy.
So I just sent the anvil onto the foot like this and went right into the toes.
We just clipped the big toe.
Then I tried again, aiming for the middle of the foot, but just hit the toes again, which looked pretty messed up. Then I just threw the anvil like that, which looked nuts in slow-mo, and it made the toes start completely separating. And then I just proceeded to throw it on it multiple times like this to see how much damage it could do. Here's the slow-mo shots. And the foot was already pretty messed up, but with one more final blow like this to the center of the foot was disintegrated. So one day I took my Tesla to a not very busy parking lot to test the Tesla Smart Summon feature. I wanted to make sure it actually worked perfect, so I just hit come to me and the Tesla started moving like this. This is what it looked like inside. It literally just started pulling out of the parking spot and making its way to me. I was pretty nervous for it, but it was doing just fine and driving better than I was. And I had my brother sit in the back and film these shots of it just spinning the wheel with nobody in it, and it looks like something out of some crazy movie. And here's me absolutely shocked that it was working with no one in it.
Oh my god.
And overall, the Tesla was driving really safe, making perfect stops and putting on the blinker, and here it is coming right to pick me up. So we demonstrated that it works without any traffic, but we had to take things up a notch and actually test it with a person in the road. So I had my brother stand there while I summoned it to come to me, and it slowed down and then completely stopped and made its way around my brother. So then we had to test him just walking out in the middle of the road like this, like he was on his phone. And when he did, the car stopped way before he even got to the road and went on its merry way. Like if you want me to try in a really busy parking lot. This is black crude oil harvested directly from the oil field, and this is the blackest paint in the world that I used to paint this apple. And today I'm going to be painting with both of them on these canvases and these snowmen to see which one paints darker. Starting with the black paint on this canvas, I spread it all over and went over it a few times and it looked like this. Then I put my brush in the oil and began painting the other canvas. And they were both really dark, but I noticed the oil had a slight brown tint to it. Here's both of them after I painted it, and now it's just time to let them dry. Then I got out Snowman 1 and Snowman 2 and painted this one with the darkest black paint, and then got the oil out, started pouring it all over the snowman's head, and covered him in the oil. And everything was finished and looked like this. And then we let it dry for 24 hours and came back and it looked like this. Wow, here's the black snowman and here's the oily snowman. And here's the paintings. This is the oil one, and this is the darkest paint in the world. It's super brown here and it's still wet, super dark oily right here. And both paintings turned out pretty different. So after selling the pawn shop guy all the gold I found in these dirt bags for $200, I wanted to see how much he would pay for the dirt bag itself, as well as these gold bricks that can contain real gold and this money soap that has a mystery amount of money inside. So it was time to see what he would pay. So inside of this bar contains up to 5, 10, 20, 50, or even $100 bill. I'll sell it to you for 20.
Well, how do you know how much is in there?
It's a mystery.
So if I give you 2 and then there's not 2 in there, will you give me my money back?
Yeah, I mean...
So how about 5?
Okay, yeah. So he bought it for $5 and then he opened it up to see how much money he would find.
I broke even.
So now I got these gold bricks. There's a 1 in 24 chance of it containing real gold. So I got 2 of them here and I'll sell them both to you for $10.
Well, tell you what, how about I just buy one of them for $3?
And he just bought one of them for $3 and then he took it to this vise to bust it open to see what was inside. And it was just a rock.
Got screwed on that deal.
You know how I kept bringing you the gold I found in dirt bags? I thought instead of bringing you all the gold I found, I'd just sell you one of the dirt bags. This is a $50 bag of dirt.
You're saying I'm gonna find $50 worth of gold in that?
There's probably at least $20.
How much you want for it?
I was thinking 40. I
Don't
mean,
sound like a good return.
so you don't want it?
Probably not. I tell you what though, sell you this bag, and I guarantee you, it'll have some pretty nice stuff in there.
How much is it?
I would do 500.
And I just told him this. I'll let my audience decide. So like and comment if you want me to come back and buy the mystery bag. Today I wanted to see if I could find more gold in a $40 bag of dirt or $40 worth of these gold bricks. Starting with the gold bricks, I unwrapped them all and then started putting them in this hydraulic press thing. And the first one had rock and the second one also had a rock, but defying the 1 in 24 odds, in the third one we found gold. Gold already! With only a 1 in 24 chance, we'd found gold in the third one. The nugget was very tiny and weighed literally nothing on the scale, so we would need to find a lot more to start adding up the value. But after searching through the rest of the gold bricks, all we found was more rock. So now it was time to search through the $40 worth of dirt and see if we could find more gold. I sifted it out and immediately we found a gold nugget that was bigger than the gold we found in the bricks. Then we found this other decent sized nugget, kept on searching and found a really tiny nugget, and this other really tiny nugget, and it was all starting to add up to way more gold in the dirt bag. We found a few more little tiny pieces, put it in this container, and then we weighed it, and it came out to 3.8 grams, about $13 of gold, while the other gold was basically worthless, and at most was worth maybe like $2. Today I'm selling a bunch of random stuff, including the blackest paint and a few of the things I painted with it, this chainmail armor, and the tiniest piece of gold in the world to the pawn shop guy.
What's up, Dylan?
I got some things I think you'd really want to buy. This is a painting that was made using the darkest black paint in the world. The darkest painting in the world, basically.
That's just black. Black is the darkest paint you can get.
No, it's the darkest black.
Black is black. It looks like a piece of canvas painted black.
So you're not interested?
No, probably not.
I got more. We have the world's blackest snowman. Here.
Never seen a black snowman before.
I was thinking like $10. It's kind of unique.
I'd probably give 2 for it.
Okay.
$2?
So I had my first sale. Half a bottle of the world's blackest paint. BLK 3.0.
Let's just look it up. No, they got a 4.0 out now, so it's technically not the blackest. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do with black paint.
So this, if you ever handle sharp knives, you want to be wearing one of these. Chainmail armor, like in Minecraft.
I wonder if it'll fit in my hand. Gotta pull an OJ Simpson. That's pretty cool. I'd give you $5 for that. That's pretty neat.
So he bought it and I showed him this.
Is that gold?
I got this real gold chain, 14 karat.
See this little scratch right here? You know what that means? It's like copper.
And he told me it was fake, so I moved on. In this bag is the world's smallest piece of gold.
I wouldn't drop it out of there then, because you'll never find it.
It fell on the ground. Yeah, I almost lost it, but thankfully we found it.
That looks like a chomp.
And then he weighed it.
Doesn't even weigh a gram. Let me go.
It weighed nothing and was worth...
So what do you think my little pebble's worth?
$1.
Yeah, I'll keep it.
Have a good day.
You too.
So after trying to sell this bag of dirt to the pawn shop guy, he turned me down and instead offered to sell me his own $500 mystery bag of dirt.
I'll let my audience decide.
And you guys told me to go back and buy it, so I have the money and we're gonna buy it.
So I let my audience decide, and they told me I should buy it.
Oh, the dirt bag?
Yeah. What do you think about going 400 on it?
I can do that.
And we had a deal.
Hopefully you make some money.
Now it was time to see if I'd make my money back. I poured it out and immediately found this silver thing and this gold looking thing, as well as this gold looking ring that I didn't know how much was worth, and this little thing with gold nuggets inside. Then I found this silver dollar thing and a bunch of other silver coins. And I already had a decent looking pile of stuff. Then I found this random gold nugget that weighed almost a gram by itself. Then next we found this really tiny piece of gold and set it by the other piece. And then found this diamond that has to be worth like $100. And after searching through the dirt to make sure we didn't miss anything, we just kept on finding a few more gold nuggets, making the total weight of the gold 1.38 grams. This is what the gold looks like, and here's all the stuff. I put it in a bag. So let me know if I should go back and see what it's all worth. So in my last video, I filled this inflatable pool completely up with salt and water because I wanted to test how much salt you needed to float in water. But now I'm attempting again in a deeper pool so I can see myself float better.
First test, no salt. I don't float whatsoever.
We then poured 1 bag of salt for the first test.
This is me trying to float with 1 bag of salt. I float slightly better, but I'm still sinking. 2 more bags of salt.
I then poured 2 more bags in, mixed it up to try in 3 bags of salt.
So I'm floating slightly. I feel like it's not perfect, so we need more salt. 3 more bags of salt.
And then I poured 3 more 40-pound bags in, totaling to 6 bags of salt.
6 bags of salt. Let's see how easy I float. So I'm pretty much floating, but I feel like I'm still bobbing up and down. Pouring in the rest of the salt.
And after pouring in all the salt, I got in the water and immediately rose to the top.
Oh, perfectly floating without even trying.
And so yeah, you can perfectly see me legitimately floating from every single angle with ease.
So this is what happens if I try to sink myself and then I just let my body resurface. Slowly, I just come back up.
So a while back, I made a video where I went out to the oil field and bought a jar of oil from this oil man. And it turned out it wasn't worth what I paid.
I think you paid way too much for it. I'd give you probably 50 cents for it.
Then in my next video, I went out to confront him about it, and he made me a deal where I did a whole bunch of work for him, including digging for oil. And this brings me to today, when I was just scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video of this guy who found oil in this field and boiled it and made it this tar. And I wanted to see if this was really even possible. So I went back out to the oil field and showed him this video to see if it was possible.
We can absolutely use my oil to make something like that. But I'm going to make you one heck of a deal.
And he told me he'd let me buy some more of his oil, so I filled up this jug and then we made a deal.
That smells like money, all that oil. Let's see what you got there. With today's market price, that's $50 worth of oil.
Yeah.
I'll let you have it for $40.
Okay.
So I paid him $40 and then I took the oil back to run the experiment. We poured it all in this camping pot and then lit a fire underneath it, and it kind of sparked up like this, but after a while it got real hot, so we cooled it down and it just smoked like this. And then I went to see if it turned into tar, but it was straight liquid.